across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell, and we'll be debating many things this evening, including why Kevin O'Sullivan is completely wrong. Andy Burnham deserves a holiday. I'll tell you why. I've written an article for the I newspaper about it. It's online at the moment and on my Twitter. You're going to disagree with me, I think, but my view is I want politicians to be like normal people. Most people take a holiday in August. Yeah, he's only been in the job for 15 days, but he's done quite a lot in that time. Lots of people are going to disagree with me. That's okay, because in this show, unlike Kevin's, we disagree without being disagreeable. Graham Stringer also disagrees with me, so we'll have a debate about that. Also, on a much more serious point, the Justice Secretary Alex Norris has said that PC Harper's mother is right to be angry, but he's not going to give her any comfort because the killers of PC Harper will be released early, probably by Christmas. We're going to speak to retired DCI Mike Neville about that in a second, and we'll hear your views on all of that as well. We'll also be talking about the prison early release scheme more generally, and about the mega dinghy carrying 157 migrants catching fire in the Channel. Another story which would be hilarious if it wasn't so farcical is that the Irish government, which hates Israel, has decided not to take Israeli technology on its new €53 million government jet. That means it can't fly in fog. Last year at Dublin Airport, there were 33 days when planes couldn't land or landed with the assistance of technology that allowed them to land in fog. But the government jet, which will be carrying the Irish Prime Minister, the Irish Foreign Minister, the Irish President, well, it won't be able to land in fog because they hate the Israelis so much. Yeah, I'm sure that will give them great comfort as they're circling Dublin Airport, hoping for the fog to dissipate. We'll talk about all of that. Loads to discuss this evening. I want to discuss it with you. Tell me why I'm wrong and Kevin's right, or why Kevin's wrong and I'm right on the Andy Burnham taking a holiday story. Whatever you want to talk about, however you want to say it, do give me a shout. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a WhatsApp voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring on the phone 0344 499 1000. Let's get started here in the Evening Exchange on Talk. Well, the most serious story, the most possibly serious story we could talk about this evening is how the deaths and horrible crimes that people have committed have led to some people obviously going to prison, but now because there isn't space in our prisons, those people are being released, some of those perpetrators anyway. The father of a beautician who was shot outside a pub, Tim Edwards, says it's a massive kick in the teeth. He says that a man who assisted her murder is now going to be eligible for early release under the government scheme. Elle Edwards was killed by a gunman, Connor Chapman, who fired a Scorpion submachine gun into a group of people outside the Lighthouse pub in the Wirral on Christmas Eve 2022. Let's hear what he thinks of the government's early release scheme.
For people like us, and especially in our case with Ellie's case, the person who assisted in her murder fits the criteria for early release. It's like kicking the teeth. And again, it just shows that the families and the victims don't get a say in any of this. And it just shows that they don't care. And it's devastating to wake up to a phone call yesterday to say that there was going to be absolutely no change, other than obviously for paedophiles and rapists, which quite rightly so, but then everyone else is still unaffected, so they're free to walk in October. And like I said, it's a massive kick in the teeth.
Alex Norris is the Justice Secretary.
When we came to government 2 years ago, we were days away from prison places running out. That would have meant people being arrested but then bailed straight home and not being able to go to prison for crimes they committed. You know, we are changing that reality. As you see here, we're building prison places at a rapid scale, 14,000 places coming like these out of the ground. We've also made important changes to sentencing to make sure we do have enough prison places. Without those sentencing changes, we would run out in October or November of this year. Now, that is about, yes, a slightly earlier release, but with significant control in the community. we have managed to bring forward significant change, because quite rightly many families, including the families that you mentioned there, are really upset about it, and they feel that they're carrying the can for previous failures, and they're right. And that shouldn't be the case, but we have to fix this system, and the reforms we're doing, that's what we do to fix these systems, as well as, of course, what we're doing here today.
Alex Norris, the Lord Chancellor and Justice Secretary. Well, Mike Neville is with me now, the retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. It's interesting because the Justice Secretary has said that PC Harper's mother is right to be angry. This is coming at the expense of victims, and he's saying, I'm really sorry you feel that way, but we're doing this nonetheless. This is the way things are.
It's not good enough. And I have to disagree with you, Peter. When Burnham is in command, when you take command, that's the first thing. This is a crisis. Why are you going on holiday when there's a crisis? If you're in command, I like the British Legion motto, service before self.
So my point on that, we'll talk about this later on in the programme, but my point on that is the Prime Minister is never fully on holiday. They can be on a plane, they can be somewhere else in the country. He's going to continue to do meetings.
This is so serious, he needs to be here, in my view.
All right.
What gets me, though, Peter, is that there's no will for these policies. This Alex Norris, I've looked into him. He was the Immigration Minister before, so that's going well, isn't it? This man's a career politician. He's another one of these characters. There's no will. Firstly, you need will to do things and to keep people in prison, and I think the left have never liked putting people in prison, and this is a good excuse to carry out their policy of releasing them. And I've sat on the train, and here's my plan which I offer to the Home Office. First thing, in a prison, there are vast amounts of exercise yards and empty spaces. We'll get some porta cabins put in there. Then you could also look at old army camps and put some barbed wire and surround it with people with dogs. Perhaps you could move many female prisoners. I mean, most women prisoners are non-violent people. You could move women prisoners in there or release them. And you can then deport foreign prisoners who committed so we need people who committed violent offences to serve some time for the victim to see that, but foreign prisoners who've done non-violent crimes should be shipped out. What we have here is a government who really doesn't want to do this. You had the incompetent Conservatives before who allowed this to go on. The Labour Party, as far as I can see, they don't like prisons, and so this is an excuse. And we get more nonsense. So what they'll say is we're releasing these people, but we're putting them on a tag, as though this is some kind of solution. Now, I did my own research into this, and I found out that people on tags, people think that this means they're like locked in the house and they can't go out. Only 23% of the breaches, when it goes off, have anything done about them. So they
And this is a really interesting point, and we've just got a message from Cliff in Berkshire. He says, good evening, Peter. Could you please ask Mike Neville what sort of conditions will be put on these two people responsible for the death of PC Harper? What would stop the two, I believe they're members of the travelling community, what would just stop them from just disappearing into the travelling community?
Absolutely. So what you have here, they say, oh, we're going to put a tag on them. But my own research shows that only 23% of the breaches, you know, because you're given a tag and it'll say you can't go out at a certain time.
So many of them aren't monitored.
Yeah, you can't go to a certain place. When you get arrested, that doesn't mean anything's done about it. You could just be told, don't do it again, and be sent home. Because most people think, you're on a tag, it'll be breached, somebody gets you, and because you breached it, you're sent back to prison. It doesn't work like that. The government bring in these things like, oh, we'll have tags, but they don't bring in a sort of tag unit to deal with it.
Yes.
They just offload this onto the police. Now, we know that the police are already overwhelmed with theft, burglary, rape, murder, death, shootings. So the police have already got enough on their hands without dealing with tags. And what there'll be now at the Home Office is there'll be vast amounts of meetings with righteous people who sit there. There'll be lawyers saying every reason why you can't deport foreign criminals, or you can't do this and you can't do that. We need action. We've got a Prime Minister going on holiday, and we've got a whole establishment that doesn't want people to go to prison, and an incompetent Conservative government beforehand, and this is the consequence, where victims, like we heard, the man from the Wirral there, the wife and mother of PC Harper, who campaigned so hard to get the law changed, being failed by career politicians like Alex Norris.
Is it all Alex Norris's fault? Because it's interesting, YouGov, the polling company, has some information today. It's done a poll, and just 7% of people say that the current Labour government is most responsible for the shortage of prison spaces. 34% said the previous Conservative government is most responsible. 40% think they're equally responsible. Who do you think's responsible?
I think all of them are responsible. example, so the Conservative Party, how do you get to a situation, Peter, where the prisons are suddenly 97% full? Surely at like 90, an alarm goes off and somebody says, well, we've got to do something about this. But you've got something could be done. And I offer my services. I will take a regiment of Royal Engineers and we'll set up prisons all over the country. We built these Nightingale hospitals. How fast were they knocked up? I was speaking to somebody I was in the Veterans Club just an hour ago, and somebody said, oh, one of the camps down near Portsmouth, empty. We could use that. And this is where I think...
Would they be totally secure?
Well, I think this is a place to move women prisoners. Women prisoners are invariably not violent. Let's take over Holloway. Some of them are, but
it's rare.
Two-thirds are not. Two-thirds are in there for theft, fraud and whatever else. Rightly so, but these are... I think the public would rather see them being released rather than PC Harper's killers or the man who shot the girl, as we heard, in Merseyside.
Yes.
And that's the solution to all this. But you need the will and the desire to do that, and I don't think that exists.
It's interesting you mention that because, I mean, I worked in the Ministry of Justice for 6 months and I agree with you. Under Keir Starmer, they pledged to build 14,000 prison places by 2031. They've delivered about 3,200 places as of July, according to BBC Verify, which we'll have to suppose is right in this. When it comes to what the families are saying, what they want, of course, is for people to be behind bars for the whole of the sentence.
Of course.
We're also in a situation where we have a load of foreign criminals, we were talking about this yesterday, who are in asylum accommodation and are being, we can't even deport them.
It's insane, isn't it? But we need an emergency legislation. The ECHR, it needs to go. All this lefty nonsense about, oh, we'll be like Russia if we do. How would this country be like Russia? There are
loads of countries that don't have the ECHR. Australia doesn't have the ECHR. America doesn't have the ECHR.
Exactly. But as I say, one of the easiest things for me, you go to any prison and there's vast open spaces, the exercise yards, which are surrounded by the big fence and the bar. So get some porta cabins. If need be, get some tents. Move the people who are the most non-violent into those and use the cells for those who are the most wicked and evil people who need to be locked up. Take over Holloway Prison. These are simple solutions, which is literally back of a fag packet on the train up here. How is it I can do that? And there's vast amounts of officials at the Home Office who are not coming up with these things.
Mike, thank you. Great common sense, as always. I do disagree with you on Burnham, but we'll talk about that more as the show goes on. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to disagree with me on that, and that's okay, because we disagree without being disagreeable on the show. Mike Neville there, ex-Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Thanks for joining us. Lots of people getting in touch. Elaine says travellers cannot be tagged due to something to do with electricity on traveller sites. That came from a probation officer who called in to talk earlier. I missed that particular call, Elaine, but thank you for it. Also, Kev says, what is the issue with going back to the old system of 4 to a cell? Hey, presto, cheaper than building new prisons. Why did they repair a system that wasn't broken? Well, there are a lot of prisons that just were not fit for purpose at all. Also, Chris says, if the law is not going to protect people, then people will have to start protecting themselves. Then what happens? Anarchy. Lots on, well, the fire in the dinghy. I'll talk about that. Andy says the fire in the dinghy today strengthens reforms Operation Fortress plan for stopping the boats. These boats are overloaded. All boats in the vicinity were asked to help, including British boats today. All 160 migrants were taken back to France. Exactly what our Royal Marines will do. They will only have to do it 2 or 3 times. When they know they can't get across, they will stop. Absolutely no difference. Lots of people disagreeing with me on Andy Burnham. No great surprise there, it must be said. Kath says, evening, Peter. I usually agree with everything you say, but Burnham should not have gone on holiday. He put himself out there, wanted the job, didn't want to start till September and needs to take it seriously. Great start, not. And the nice guy rule is totally cringe. Well, I agree with a lot of that, actually, but I will outline in more depth as time goes on as to why I think he's right to take a holiday. Becca says, if Burnham had been planning a coup for a year, managed to get a lease on number 10 North before the by-election, surely he could have had a family holiday before now. The country is in trouble. He needs to be leading. Glyn in Catterick says, can we now expect a charity boxing match between you and Kevin O'Sullivan? Ding dong, says Glyn in Catterick. Glyn, no. And I'll tell you why. Because Kevin would win. Stay with us. Debate Desk next.
I think what he suspects is that the leadership of Reform is in trouble with all these scandals, apparent scandals over donations. Reform, nevertheless, is well known across the country. Reform as a vehicle is capable, if it has the right leadership, of actually forming a government. And that with the weakened leadership of Reform, there's a risk that Reform itself will be lost. And he doesn't want to lose the potential of a vehicle that could provide the kind of government that he and I and others wish this country to have.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots. Sorry, that was a classic example of someone telling a joke in the break, and then it comes into the show, and I have in my ear, "You're back," and I'm trying to be really serious, and I can't because Sebastian's just told a very funny joke, which I will not repeat because it's not past the watershed. Lots of people in touch on Andy Burnham and his holiday, including David, who sent me this voice note.
I don't wish to be disagreeable, but I am. What job has anybody ever had where in the first month of employment in that role you're able to take your allotted 2-week holiday period? Unbelievable. Burnham is just painting himself as an idiot, another idiot.
That wasn't disagreeable at all. That was disagreeing with me whilst being agreeable. Let's just get this head on. I mean, we can talk about the other big stories as time goes on throughout the debate desk. We've got a full 40 minutes as we always do. I'm delighted that Claire Muldoon and Sebastian Selleck, political commentators both, are with me. Good evening to you both.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Lots of people disagreeing with me because I think Andy Burnham's right to take a holiday. Claire?
I agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
After 15 days?
Angela Rayner has brought in these new employment rights, didn't you know? For first time in a job, you can get sick pay, you can get holiday pay, you can get any pay you want. He's merely living the life of a Labour MP. Now he is one.
Can I put my serious points across on this?
Yes, I did read your article.
Did you?
The Eye,
right, thank you.
Was it independent of the Eye?
The Eye, yes. So I think, first of all, it's not ideal, 15 days in.
Yeah.
However, it is parliamentary recess.
Yes.
It is the summer. He's done quite a lot in the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
I want politicians to be as normal as possible and to get 8 hours sleep a night. I've worked for workaholic politicians. You know, Rishi Sunak used to have meetings at 8:30 on the Sunday morning, and you know, people would have to be in for those. That, you know, I don't think that meant good governance.
No.
Margaret Thatcher, great governor, but you know,
Relied on 6 hours of 4 hours
sleep a night, and hated holidays.
Yeah.
Harold Wilson took holidays in the Isles of Scilly, did sailing and so on. I think that made him more relatable.
Yeah.
Andy Burnham has a family, as a lot of people do. I just think he's had a really busy year. He will still be in control. It's impossible to properly be on holiday when you're Prime Minister.
Going on, not relinquishing the Mayor of Manchester, but also fighting the Makerfield election.
He also is in control.
Yes.
He can be in control on when he's abroad, when he's you know, in the White House.
The world's so small now.
Yeah, well, he can be in control on a plane. He can be in control and be on holiday. He said he's going to take meetings. He said he's going to talk to officials. Alex Norris, the Justice Secretary, said he'd probably be in touch with him every day. It won't be much of a holiday, but I'd rather he takes a break, fresh, clear-minded, for the big parliamentary session coming in September, October.
I would rather, if I were his wife as well, I would far rather he took a break with his family to get some semblance of normality, to go from the conduit of being Mayor of Manchester, being home, being present, to now on the international stage as a statesman of the UK and Prime Minister of the UK, and for his children, because they're not going to see much of them, and I don't think they might want part of the public domain from the family and the kids.
Well, that's another issue.
Exactly.
Sebastian?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with both of you, and I'm not surprised you take the view you do, given that you've worked in the machine and you see that a Prime Minister's holiday isn't really a holiday. It's not like us, where you just turn off your emails and you go and you relax.
Yeah.
He's going to be working.
He can't put
every
an
day.
out of office on.
Not at all.
And you can be a good politician or a rubbish politician. You can be a hard-working politician or a different type of politician. It's still a really intense job. I'm not saying they're down the mines. I'm not saying they're caring for people, standing on their feet, you know, helping elderly people. They're not a waiter or waitress, you know, delivering food every day. They're not a farmer getting up at the crack of dawn to milk cows. they're not that. It is a more sedentary thing, but I do think they deserve a break. Let me just read a couple of messages about why people think I'm wrong, and then we'll discuss it a bit more. Richard says, you say you want our politicians to be like normal people, and I agree to an extent. They should understand and represent ordinary, hard-working people. But I think that's also part of the problem. We don't seem to have many exceptional politicians anymore. The overall calibre feels far too low. I argue they should be the very best people we can find. I want MPs who can function on a few hours sleep when necessary, start early, finish late, and treat the role as a genuine public service. I'd even be happy to pay politicians significantly more, whole other issue, if it meant attracting a much higher calibre of candidate. The cost of poor politicians is far greater than the cost of paying good ones. Thanks, Peter. Great show. If you had your dream job, says Jane, that you wanted for 10 years, would you go on holiday after 15 days to do it or defer it? Joanna says, are you running a book as to where Andy Burnham has gone on holiday? My money is on Mauritius. I do hope he hasn't done a Starmer and ruined other people's holiday. Good evening, Peter, says Penny. I worked at Billwood Hole Prison in Hockley in Essex, which is now derelict. Make it habitable. And just on Burnham again, Lorraine says, I'm so sorry, Peter, but I have to disagree with your viewpoint on Burnham taking holiday. That's okay. It's all right to disagree. The world will not end. And Lorraine, you're a very valued correspondent who texts in every now and again, so I will read out what you say. We run a business. My husband leaves the home at 7 a.m. He's rarely back before 8 p.m. Over the years, we have had to postpone or even forfeit our holiday for the good of the company and those we employ. It's simply part of the job. Burnham plotted to oust Starmer and he came to power without a mandate. He has been out of Westminster for 12 years. He has refused to be scrutinised by Parliament and banned certain journalists from press conferences. We have crisis after crisis and a country in free fall, and now he leaves convicted fraudster running the country. Burnham should have postponed his holiday. He wanted this job, so he needs to start working. I'm sorry, the man is a grifter, not a grafter. Let me just tell you one quick thing before I go back to Claire and Sebastian. I worked very hard on the 2019 election to get the MP I then worked for, Robert Buckland, elected. I was knackered. Then we got, now not like any of those other jobs I mentioned for people who genuinely work hard, but I was pretty tired. We then started back in the Ministry of Justice, where Robert was the Lord Chancellor. I was due to take a holiday a few weeks after that. Dominic Cummings came in as Chief of Staff at 10 Downing Street and he said, all holidays are cancelled, all leave is cancelled, Boris Johnson's Prime Minister, you're not taking any holidays, this is not happening. Sorry, it was before then, it was when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister. It was before the election, apologies. So Dominic Cummings says, all leave is cancelled. I kept going, and then I had to stop after a couple of months because I hadn't stopped and I was working basically every day. And I'm not saying, you know, strike up the aria of the tiniest violin in the world, but rest is good. Rest makes you better at your job. Final thoughts on this, and then we'll move on to something else. Sebastian?
Yeah, no, completely agree. We have to treat politicians like humans and not like slaves. We have this bizarre notion that they are the employees and we are the bosses in this country. It's the opposite in America, and I think it's one of the rare things to get right.
Okay.
Well, I agree with a lot of points that Richard made, actually, and I think that traditionally, I think what has killed actually the new era of politicians and politics is the amount of social media that is put out.
You're very right.
Because everyone has a commentator now, everyone has a view, and I think that starts to run people down. I remember studying in economics whilst I was at school, and one of the things we did was, you know, the set-up of Parliament, the House of Lords, etc., etc., etc. And the reason women didn't go into politics much was because of the sitting hours in the Houses of Parliament. They were so long, and Richard said, he commented on that, he did say that there are long hours. They still are. But the difference is, I think, that because we are living in such a smaller world that will enable the Prime Minister Andrew Burnham to have the ability to contact his Chief of Staff, his members of Parliament, his Cabinet, whilst he is on holiday.
We're more connected.
It's actually to the detriment. We're more connected, you're right, but it's to the detriment that sometimes that we are, and I think that's why we're not getting the calibre of MP that we actually deserve.
I think that is spot on, Claire, and I think what happens is that we want politicians to be superhuman. Labour MP said to me years ago, I remember she saying this, she said, I can't have an argument with my boyfriend in Sainsbury's. Because someone will whip out the phone, record it, it'll be online. And that's what'll happen. You know, I remember Stella Creasy, the MP for Walthamstow, not a great
I'm not a fan
of many people. But on this particular point, she was at a charity disco, a silent disco on a Saturday night, and she was completely, you know, she shouldn't be there, shouldn't be doing that. I want politicians to know what's going on in the traitors. I want them to have kids. I want them to have a family life. I want them to go shopping. I don't want them to be completely cosseted from normal people, because then they get disconnected and we put people off all the time. But Chris in Newbury has another point, really interesting point. He said, Peter, I hate to say it, but you're totally wrong. That's okay, Chris. The PM is the chief executive of a £3 trillion business. I don't want ordinary, I want exceptional. Ordinary prime ministers is why our country is an economic disaster. Ordinary summer holidays or for middle managers. Robin says, I don't think Burnham should have gone on holiday. This country is a mess with huge problems. Burnham wanted desperately to be prime minister. He planned it, he plotted. He knew the problems of this country. He should be raring to go. One more from Dan in Wiltshire.
He will be after his holiday.
Dan in Wiltshire says, you say you want the Prime Minister to be like normal folk by taking a summer holiday, yet us normal folk can't afford a summer holiday. I work full-time, I earn an okay wage, but with 3 young kids, there's no way I can afford to go away. The Prime Minister needs to be here to ease the cost of living crisis by sorting things like North Sea drilling. Graham in Bushy says, as Andy Burnham is on holiday and Louise Haig is now in charge, if an issue does flare up, then she can always call Andy Burnham, assuming she knows where her mobile phone is.
Ooh,
yes.
Burnham.
We're going to take a break now, and then we're going to talk about the crisis in our prisons. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
David says all these people are comparing it to a normal job. Being Prime Minister is not a normal job. He may have gone to the Chagos Islands to see what's going on. Alan says, Burnham on holiday, who's going to authorise our nuclear deterrent in his absence? Well, the thing is, Alan, if we do get to that point, which is highly unlikely, he can still do it. You know, you can be on holiday and have a phone. He would have much more than that. He'll have officials with him, he'll have a secure phone, he'll have his chief of staff nearby. You know, this is not a normal holiday because you're not dealing with a normal person. Cliff says, I suspect Andy Burnham didn't expect to be Prime Minister until the Labour conference in October. I think Starmer going straight away rather snookered Andy. The government is more than just one man. He must have a deputy. He does. That's Louise Haig. David in Dorset says, you lot are missing the point completely. I love a holiday. I'm desperate for a holiday, but I cannot afford it and I work a full time. You lot are out of touch, says David in Dorset. David, I mean, listen, I want everybody to take a break. You can take a break at home. You can have a few days off. I really wish you well, David, and I'm sorry that we feel that way. I'm not jetting off to any exotic holidays this year and going to Edinburgh for a few days. I'm very lucky to be going up to the festival. I count my blessings every day. And you're absolutely right. There are an awful lot of people who work very hard and can't afford a holiday, particularly if they have a couple of kids. So, David, I wish you well. Donna says, to be really honest, he's a work-from-home dad. Steve said he's entitled to a holiday, but he's only earned 2.33 days holiday, so why is he taking 2 weeks off? I like that. And Elisa says, 8 hours sleep a night, chance to be a fine thing. I'm lucky to get 4 or 5. How much do you sleep at night?
I can't do anything less than 8. I'm no use on.
What do you mean you can't do anything? You mean people suffer? Jordan will suffer if you get less than 8.
Yes.
You've got a rude awakening, young man, if you have children.
Rude awakening. How much do you sleep at night?
I'd love to say that, but I can't. 5 hours, and that's me.
5?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
and there's many years that I've not managed to have a holiday either. It's not, written in sand that you have to have a holiday.
Yes, exactly.
It's horses for courses, and holidays come in a myriad of different ways, shapes and forms.
This is a big debating point, and we will continue to debate it throughout the show. 0344 499 1000. You want to give me a ring, you tell me I'm wrong, or Kevin's right, or whoever else is right, that's absolutely fine. The other big story today, which is much more serious, is of course about the Justice Secretary saying that PC Harper's mother is right to be angry, but he can't actually offer her any succour because this release of many violent people, many people who haven't served all of their sentence or even half their sentence, is going ahead. I want to hear what Alex Norris has to say about this. He is the Justice Secretary and he was speaking earlier today.
When we came to government 2 years ago, we were days away from prison places running out. That would have meant people being arrested but then bailed straight home and not being able to go to prison for crimes they committed. You know, we are changing that reality, as you see here. We're building prison places at a rapid scale, 14,000 places coming like these out of the ground. We've also made important changes to sentencing to make sure we do have enough prison places. Without those sentencing changes, we would run out in October or November of this year. Now, that is about, yes, a slightly earlier release, but with significant control in the community. We have managed to bring forward significant change because, quite rightly, families, many families, including the families that you mentioned there, are really upset about it, and they feel that they're carrying the can for previous failures, and they're right. And that shouldn't be the case, but we have to fix this system, and the reforms we're doing, that's what we do to fix these systems, as well as, of course, what we're doing here today.
Alex Norris there, the Justice Secretary. A PC Harper's mother is right to be angry. This prison early release scheme comes at the expense of victims. There are so many people who are very, very annoyed about this. We're in a situation right now, Claire and Sebastian, where we just don't have the room in prisons. It's interesting, you look at some of the polling. YouGov has done some polling today saying only 7% of people actually say Labour's to blame. 34% say it's the previous Conservative government. 40% think both parties equally responsible. This is clearly a crisis.
It is.
Who do you think's to blame, Sebastian?
I think at large parts it falls on the last government. They added 500 net prisons in that whole period, 2010 to 2024. But it came at a time of austerity. They were trying to cut things all over the place, and that's what Labour has inherited. It's a very boring argument. It's a very, very true argument. And now I think Burnham has an impossible problem on his hands. You come in, you want to make things slightly better. You want to be able to keep some people in prison rather than going as far as Stalin was going to go. Who are you going to pick? And I would say to anybody criticising this, who would you pick? Because now we have people guilty of rape, serious child sex offences, grooming, now excluded. They're now staying in prison for longer. That's positive, but somebody has to come out.
But the point is, though, that doesn't matter. That argument, I don't disagree with that argument, but that doesn't matter to PC Harper's family.
No,
that doesn't matter to the man we heard from earlier. Actually, let's hear that clip again. This is the father of the beautician who was killed. It's a dreadful story. This is Tim Edwards you're going to hear from now. He's the father of a beautician shot outside a pub. He says it's a massive kick in the teeth that a man who assisted her murder will be eligible for early release. Elle Edwards was killed by a gunman, Connor Chapman, who fired a Scorpion submachine gun into a group of people outside the Lighthouse pub in the Wirral on Christmas Eve 2022. He'll get out soon. Let's hear this.
For people like us, and especially in our case with Ellie's case, the person who assisted in her murder fits the criteria for early release. It's like kicking the teeth. And again, it just shows that the families and the victims don't get a say in any of this. And it just shows that they don't care. And it's devastating to wake up to a phone call yesterday to say that there's going to be absolutely no change, other than obviously for paedophiles and rapists, which quite rightly so, but then everyone else is still unaffected, so they're free to walk in October. And like I said, it's a massive kick in the teeth.
To Tim Edwards, to the Harper family, all of what you say is logically correct.
Yeah.
But there are so many times when politicians make perhaps logical decisions or the decisions that they have to make because of the circumstances, but emotionally it doesn't feel right.
No, I completely agree, and it comes back to the what would you do instead, because if you make one exception for one of these families, you have to make exception for all of them, and then we're faced with the prospect of prisons being full in a few months' time, and we cannot have that as a country. So there's a very, very strong human angle here. If I were affected, I would be distraught. But it just speaks to the crisis that we're in, the bind where somebody has to lose for others to win, sadly.
Claire?
It's hugely emotive. But as far as I'm concerned, I did think that if you were on any form of release from prison, whether it be through the parole service, you had to show sorrow for it. You had to show the fact that you were very remorse. And as far as I know from PC Harper's case, the two boys that drove away didn't know that he was still attached to the car.
They say.
But even still, They are now in prison for that, but apparently they're not showing any remorse for what they've done and maintain the fact that they are innocent.
Well, we're in a situation as well that it's not related to this specifically, but the Rochdale rapist, for example, 19-year sentence, out after 14 years, can't send him back to Pakistan because they won't take him. We were talking yesterday actually about 1,500 foreign criminals who are in asylum accommodation.
Yeah.
No bit of the system, the justice
working.
system, you know, police problems, no bit of the system seems to work, Claire.
And it's the same as the healthcare system as well. No part of old age care homes or anything like that is not working either.
And we pay a huge amount of tax, the highest amount of tax.
25% of our council tax goes to care.
Yeah, I mean, and about 75% goes to that and to SEND provision as well for special needs. There's loads. We're paying the highest tax as a proportion of what the country makes since the Second World War. You know, it's a reasonable question to ask why the country doesn't work. The justice system certainly isn't working, Sebastian.
Yeah, I mean, I would come back to austerity. We spent years and years cutting and cutting and cutting, and now we're saying you have to cut more, but also why are things not working?
And
well, because there are no services
Yeah,
there.
but there's actually, it goes down to the fabric, the actual physical fabric of courthouses. They've had rack in the ceilings. They've been closed down for so long. They're falling down. That they cannot have any sitting judges. They cannot have any magistrates' courts. So the funnel of cases from the Procurator Fiscal in Scotland and the DPP from here is clogged. It's blocked. They can't go anywhere. So not only have we got on exit a block as well, because we need to get rid of people, like move them round the system, here it's not working either. The whole system needs blowing up.
And it's minor things as well. I have a friend, my friend Michael is a criminal barrister, and he has told me that he's been in court, quite reasonably large courts like Reading and places like that. We've had him on the show before, and he told me one time the entire court couldn't function for a day. You're talking about tens of thousands of pounds of da-da. Do you know why? Because the guy who drove the van that brought the prisoners in went off. He was sick, called in sick. He drives the van from the prison, brings the prisoners to be in the court cases. He was sick and there wasn't a replacement. There was another time when he was in court and everybody needed to see certain documents. The photocopier didn't work. And they had to cancel the particular court case.
It's things like that. And then the squeeze on legal aid as well. It's disabling families from getting clear and open judgments from their cases, and the social services, the whole system needs blowing up.
Let me read a message from Gary. He says, I can't let this government get away with just blaming previous Conservative administrations for the shortage of prison places. When the Conservative-led coalition came into office in 2010, they inherited an annual budget deficit from the outgoing Labour government over 9% of GDP, what the country makes. That's roughly the equivalent of almost 300 billion today. Plus, there was that note in the Treasury saying there's no money left. So the truth is that even if Labour had been re-elected in 2010, they would have had to slash capital spending on things like prisons because we simply didn't have the money. Capital spending is buying new stuff, essentially. It's also worth noting that in opposition, some Labour MPs and the Labour-run Welsh Government successfully managed to block the building of a super prison in Port Talbot. In fact, the local protesters were led by none other than the MP for Aberfan and current Labour Government Minister Stephen Kinnock. You can't complain about a shortage of prison places when in government if you block the building of them when in opposition. Sebastian, what do you make of what Gary says?
So there are two parts to this. The first is the planning system. We've seen massive deregulation of planning under the Starmer government. Really, really good thing, not just for prisons, but for reservoirs, for housing, for all of the things we haven't been building for decades and decades and decades. And the other part of it, which we didn't hear about in the early 2010s, was interest rates. They were near zero. It was a beautiful time to borrow money. It's vastly regrettable we didn't do that then. Compared to now, it's much more expensive. We could have borrowed to invest then. The case is much harder now.
Lots more to come on the debate desk. I want to hear your views too on all of these matters. 0344 499 1000. And I have some breaking news. It is from Kevin O'Sullivan, who says he will not be taking me on in a fight. He says, Peter, I'm a writer, not a fighter. Stay with us here on Talk.
I think what he suspects is that the leadership of Reform is in trouble with all these scandals, apparent scandals over donations. Reform, nevertheless, is well known across the country. Reform as a vehicle is capable, if it has the right leadership, of actually forming a government. And that with the weakened leadership of Reform, there's a risk that Reform itself will be lost. And he doesn't want to lose the potential of a vehicle that could provide the kind of government that he and I and others wish this country to have.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Dalton from Middlesbrough. He says, I don't agree with your take that the Prime Minister can take 2 weeks off immediately when the country is in the state it currently is. Kevin is absolutely right. Sorry, Pete. He can take a holiday and he should be able to do it, but only when the priorities of the country have been addressed and a plan is in place. If you do this in the private sector when a company is firefighting operational issues, you'll be sacked swiftly. Have a good evening, mate. Dalton, when is the right time for Andy Burnham to take a holiday? Next summer? There'll be another crisis. Amanda says, I hear what you say about Andy Burnham's holiday. The point is optics. It would have been wise for his family to have a holiday at Chequers, as good as any country house hotel, and in this country. Well, we don't know where he's gone.
Exactly.
He might be in this country. Jane says, having planned his new job for a year, the Prime Minister goes on holiday, leaving the person who helped him get in charge. Hopefully she isn't plotting to get rid of him while the cat's away and all that. Hopefully Larry is in charge. Let's hear a voice note from Joe on Burnham's holiday.
I think this is a bit of the us and them, because obviously if you're working for the private sector, you will rarely go on holiday 2 weeks into a new job. So that is something, firstly, I'd love to point out, because there's a lot of grafters out there, especially when they get up, they get a new job, they're not going to be going on holiday within 2 weeks. Secondly, he's actually pointed out that he's going to be relentless when it comes to stopping the migrants coming in. Relentless means continuing without pause. I'm pretty sure to say that 2 days before you go on holiday is a bit of a hypocritical comment. Maybe he wants to actually stand up for the people that have voted in him, because he's not going to last long if he keeps this up.
Thank you, Joe. Let's hear from Rob.
Andy Burnham apparently has been planning this for a year. So surely someone could have advised him that let's take a holiday at a different time. It's crazy. You can't just go into a job and oh, by the way, I've got 2 weeks in Malaga next week. It's just not on. He's got to have a holiday for sure, 100%. But really, not good optics, mate.
And finally from Tony.
You want about holidays? Andy Burnham's been on holiday for the last 6 months, mate. He's done nothing. He's refused to answer questions with the media, refused to say anything, refused to do anything. And when we're going on about holidays, mate, they're all on holiday all the time. They get nearly 16 weeks off a year. 16 weeks for 100 bags of sand a year. Unbelievable, mate. And when you see them, 2 of them days are spent in London. Prime Minister's questions day before in a nice swanky hotel, on expenses, first class travel on the train. These people ain't normal, mate. When you get respect is when they should get the same holidays as the rest of us. 28 days a year for 100 grand a year, and keep off their mobile phones while they're in Parliament scrolling up and down to look what people are saying about them on X. It's an absolute joke, mate. Anthony Burnham shouldn't be on holiday. End of. None of them should. They should be on 2 weeks, that's it, but they've got 6.
Tony, I totally take your point. The recess isn't a holiday. The recess is Parliament not sitting, so they're in their constituencies doing stuff there. But I feel as if I'm standing up for politicians maybe a bit too much. John Byrne has been in touch and says, how do you look in the mirror, Peter, and not be embarrassed at what is looking back? Are you proud of your job, your work colleagues? You right-wing shills only care about money and power. You lie as you breathe. Can you remember the last time you told the truth? Yeah, I can remember the last time I told the truth. In fact, it's right now when I tell you that work colleagues is tautologist. You just need to say colleagues, because work colleagues is just the same thing. Colleagues are people you work with, John. So I've told the truth on that. Right then, back to the debate desk with Claire and Sebastian. Residents are heading out at plans to triple the size of an immigration detention centre. This comes as a mega dinghy carrying 157 migrants has caught fire in the Channel. Claire, your thoughts on this?
Have you seen the pictures of this? Of these?
Dreadful.
It's absolutely
horrifying.
Awful. Absolutely horrifying. It's like something out of the 1960s. Like, it's just awful. It gives you the heebie-jeebies. And that to be housing how many illegal migrants waiting to get their papers in place? It's too many, and it's just awful. Absolutely awful. It's far too big. It's not fit for purpose. It's only going to add to pressure of all of the infrastructure there, from health to education, to roads, to sewage, to everything, plumbing, everything. And it's not right. Processing for illegal migrants should be offshore, in my view.
Sebastian?
Look, this is a tragedy. I'm pleased nobody was hurt. It speaks to the danger of crossing the channel.
Well, I thought we were talking about the police.
We're talking about both.
We can talk about that.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, let's move on to that though, because that I think is probably more salient in the sense that it fits with the discussion we're having at the moment ago about prisons. Every time something is proposed locally, people object. I sat on a planning committee for 4 years. I had to put up with this, largely around housing. It was incredibly frustrating because people need housing in London. You see it with children's homes. Now we're seeing it with migrant detention centres as well. Nobody wants anything built anywhere.
Well, they had baby Stockholm, and that wasn't good enough either. What is good enough? It seems to be the EHCR, very, very liberal human rights lawyers will take any case instead of focusing on the human rights of British citizens in situ, in our country, trying to do the best we can.
Well, BB Stockholm had an outbreak of, was it MRSA or E. coli? There was something on board that was not good.
After the event.
No, it was with the asylum seekers on board.
With them, but once it was set up, it then blew up.
But, it was
there were people there weren't people who were happy with it in general.
Before that
as well, that was another debate.
True, yeah, I mean, there's a separate debate about how do you house migrants, but also, like, these things have to be built.
Rwanda, they don't.
But
Let's
you can't
move
send
them.
them to
There was
Rwanda.
Legionella bacteria detection. There was a suicide on board as well as severe criticism over safety and health issues. Let's talk about social media. Apparently, it has made autism too popular, and anyone of any age can now have it. This is a professor who's talked about this. Just take us through this a little bit, Sebastian.
Yeah, so I mean, look, there are two sides to this. The first is that I think it's raising awareness of these conditions, which is a good thing. You know,
what the article is.
Well, no. Just the sense that we have raised awareness of conditions like autism. People go through life feeling a little bit different, or they don't quite fit in, like they're struggling with things they shouldn't be struggling with, and then they have a way of explaining it. I think that can be hugely liberating.
Just let them speak. Just let them speak.
But the other side where we might agree is that we can't go labelling things that aren't what they are, in the sense that you can't just say, oh, I'm a bit OCD, I don't like things that are not ordered properly. We can't reappropriate illnesses.
A lot of people do that. A lot of people say, oh, I want, I'm not OCD, I don't have OCD, but when I see plug switches that are on and there's no plug in them, I switch them off.
Exactly.
And people say, oh, that's really weird, you're OCD. It's like, I'm not. I untangle headphones sometimes because I don't like tangled headphones. That doesn't make me have OCD. It is interesting, though, the definition of the problem with learning and development has become too broad, vague, and influenced by misleading ideas spread on social media. This is according to Professor Dame Ute Frith. She's from the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience at University College London, so hopefully she knows what she's talking about. She authored pioneering research in the 60s and 70s and really defining what autism was. But she says over time the definition has widened to include people with milder traits and no language or learning problems. Today, anyone of any age or intelligence level can be diagnosed with autism if they meet certain criteria. It can't be a catch-all diagnosis.
How many newspapers subscriptions do you have that you go through and then there'll be a thing, check to see if you're autistic, check to see if you've got something, if you've got ADHD, and you click on it, send your email address in and do the charts. I only do the ones for high IQ, by the way. I don't do ones for ADHD.
You don't need to do them. You don't need to do them. You give the tests.
I make them.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it's in everybody's psyche now. Oh, maybe I'm a bit ADHD. Oh, I can't even finish a book. You can't finish the book because, one, it might not interest you, and two, you know damn well that you actually want to catch up on your social media to see how many links you've got, how many likes you've got on Insta.
There are also aspects of this where there are actual people on TikTok and social media, other bits of social media, giving people tips on how to get welfare payments, to get mobility cards, and simply saying, fill in this form, do this, say you have these things. That's corrupt and horrible.
Yes.
It's inevitable, probably, as well.
Yeah.
But a lot of people like to believe they have some sort of ism.
Yeah, I mean, there are two sides to that as well. Nobody should be learning to game the system, but a lot of people struggle to navigate the system that they are entitled to. And so if there are people helping you to get things that you need, fine. If they're telling you how to scam, not fine. But look, if people are getting help for a condition that they have, however mild, and we have to remember this is a spectrum, isn't that a good thing? If people's lives are being improved,
no, because you know what? No, because an awful lot of people are wearing rainbow-coloured. Well, no, what's the lanyards for ADHD or mental health issues?
The sunflower
ones. I mean, how many of them are being doled out now, dished out? You know what? Back in the day, if a child was fidgety, you know, you say stop fidgeting. You know, stop it. Just stop it.
Well, this is a very interesting point.
Behaviour.
It reminds me a little bit of a brilliant Victoria Wood and Julie Walters programme called. It was a drama called I think it was called Pat and Margaret, and Thor Hurd was in it, and her greatest line was, "There were no dyslexia in our day, just sat at the back with a raffia."
And as a great Rod Liddell, R.I.P. said, you know, if your kid is not dyslexic, your kid is just thick.
Well, I think dyslexia is a thing, but there is a question: have we created a society where we've actually incentivised this? Not just being allowed to get away with things like being late, being rude, but financial incentives like mutability, extra benefits. You know, we talked about last night about discounts on holidays and sex toys for people who are on 70% discount on Love Honey, which is apparently a sex toy website if you're on benefits.
I mean, what?
Claire Muldoon speechless.
Yeah.
Breaking news, everyone. So, what do you think about? Are we
subsidising sex toys?
Where's that coming from? Forget about that.
It's a commercial company. They're making a decision.
Okay, so that's fine then. They can give discounts to whoever they want.
Claire Muldoon actually speechless.
Claire Muldoon disgusted and speechless.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I feel Sebastian and I might need to break into a duet of A Whole New World from Aladdin. Do we focus more on
Don't ask me to rub anything.
Oh my word. Moving on.
You started it earlier.
Moving on swiftly.
That was off air.
Moving on. Stop it.
It was clearly on air. Have you seen the outtake?
Stop it. More. Can we talk about othering, separating people with ADHD rather than encouraging them to actually reintegrate into society? Or maybe they can't. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. If you allow someone to understand their condition, then you give them the means to be able to integrate with other people. You give them an excuse to understand their boundaries, and those of us who aren't on any kind of spectrum, understand how to deal with those people as well and integrate them better. So I think if everybody has a better understanding of where they stand mentally, we are all better off as a society.
No?
No.
Okay, that's it.
That's me told.
Let's talk about the Irish government.
Just no.
Let's talk about the Irish government, because there is a new government jet. It is €53 million. It's going to ferry round dignitaries, including the Irish Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister for them, and the Irish President. But it doesn't have particular technology that allows it to land in fog, because that technology is Israeli. Sebastian, what do you make of this? It does seem pretty farcical.
This seems quite silly. They're not buying from the Israeli government either. They're buying from a private Israeli company.
They're not purchased from a French firm?
So Dassault is making the plane, the French company, and the system is being made by Elbit, the Israeli company. I mean, I don't know what Elbit are doing, whether they were part of what was going on in Gaza.
We have this all the time. We have the BDS campaign saying you shouldn't buy Israeli avocados, you shouldn't buy things from Israel because it's Israel. Yeah. And I just think it doesn't make any sense. What do you think, Claire?
Well, there's no remit or any legitimacy for not buying stuff from Israeli. No one's saying, you know, apartheid, you know, do not support Israel or support Israel. But this just is absolute lunacy, in my view, that the Irish government have, you know, expelled the Israeli embassy.
In fairness, the Israelis decided to close it themselves.
Right.
But it was a pretty hostile environment for them.
Okay, so they've left. And this just seems to be another act of anti-Semitism, really.
OK. Should the Bank of England let 1,000 employees work from abroad, Claire?
No, but I know how difficult it is for young people from the age of 18 to 24, 18 to 32 to actually get jobs, and those that have graduated from 21 up to 30, they can't live in London because it's too expensive. One room in a house, you're talking £1,000 a month, £1,100 a month, and that's no life. You eat in it, you sleep in it, you
maybe have housemates you wouldn't choose to live with.
That. So if they get a job and it's paid and you can work from home and you're very good at, you know, not having any jet lag, you could fly to places like Romania, and I know a lot of fintech young kids do. The other emerging market is South Korea.
Very
So
interesting.
a lot,
Very
yeah.
interesting.
So a lot of them are going over there too.
Just in the last minute or so, Sebastian, can you tell us about Billy's bus? Picking up
Oh, it's a
15
great
dogs
story.
at a time. I love this story.
So-
This is drawing to a halt by a row of wagging tails. The doors to the school bus open to accept the latest batch of four-legged passengers. For 10 months, Billy's bus has been picking up 15 dogs at a time from villages around West Yorkshire, ferrying them to a private park for outdoor activities. We're going to be talking to them later on.
Talking to the dogs?
Really?
Not the dogs.
That's what you said.
the
We're going to
woman
be
who does
talking to
the-
them later on.
The company's founder said that she came across the
Make it
idea by
clear.
chance and now believes every neighbourhood needs a pet daycare bus.
Yeah, the trips were designed to help the dogs socialise, she says. Isn't that a lovely thing? In
It
a
is
world
lovely.
of sorrow
I
and
love the
misery,
picture of them
are we
all
not allowed
sitting
some
there.
nice things? Are the dogs
Look
not
at
allowed
them.
to get on their little
They're
bus
lovely.
and go off on their trips?
I don't
stand
like
by
dogs,
this
but that's
100%.
lovely.
Yeah, I'm not a dog person either,
No.
but let the dogs get on their bus.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, apparently I'm told that Billy the dog may also be on the Zoom later on. Sadly, not in the studio.
As long as he's not on the spectrum. Can you imagine that? Dogs next.
Oh no.
Bring it round. No,
OCD.
I-
Just like saying dog.
I should say, Clara, have you been drinking? Just to say,
We call them gods.
Have you seen the Odyssey? It's
No,
brilliant.
do you recommend?
Anyway, no, Billy will not be in the studio. Billy the dog will not be in the studio. There'll only be one large dumb animal at that point. So thank you both very much indeed, Sebastian Salak and Claire Muldoon. That is the weirdest debate desk I've had. So, do you remember you were on with Tim Montgomery?
Oh.
Do you remember that
Talk
one?
about unravelling.
That was
bloody
really
headphones.
weird. Really weird.
Stop chucking the water.
Yeah, he was chucking water. He
Yeah.
carries a bag of ice around with him.
Yeah.
He eats cornflakes on a train.
Right.
Yeah, it was surreal.
The last
It
time
was
I went with
surreal.
Tim, he had his trousers done up with a USB cable.
Doesn't surprise me. Thank you both very much. Loads to talk about. Stay with us on Talk. We'll be speaking to Henry Bolton in a second about this immigration detention centre. The Home Office planning to move 600 illegal immigrants to it. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much for your company this evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. That was a lively debate desk, let me tell you. We'll speak to Henry Bolton in a second, the international security expert, about residents hitting out at plans to triple the size of an immigration detention centre on their doorstep. 600 illegal migrants coming there. Also, when it comes to illegal migrants, a mega dinghy carrying 157 migrants has caught fire in the Channel. Where's the Prime Minister? Well, he's on holiday. Should he take a holiday? I think it's a healthy thing to take a holiday if you can. Lots of people disagree with me. Lots of people say I'm wrong. That's okay, because on this programme, we disagree without being disagreeable. Graham Stringer is an MP for the Labour Party, and he told Kev earlier that the Prime Minister is wrong to go on holiday at this early stage. He's only been Prime Minister for 15 days, so let me know what you think. We'll debate that this hour as well. We'll also talk about social media. Has it made autism too popular? If anyone of any age can now have it. That's an expert who did a lot to diagnose it and talk about it previously. And one thing I'm really looking forward to later on in the programme is there is a dedicated West Yorkshire bus service for dogs. And it's planning a nationwide expansion. Picks them up, then they go out and socialise and walk, and it's all marvellous. So given the very serious stories we're talking about, and we'll continue to talk about lots of serious stories, including PC Harper's family and how awful they feel because of these prison releases, we'll talk about that too, of course, but there will be moments of levity too. Whatever you think, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram at CardwellPeter, confusingly. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, a WhatsApp voice note as well, or just give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. So many ways to get in touch, so many debates, topics to discuss between now and 10. So stay with me here on the Evening Exchange, here on Talk. Well, on Burnham being on holiday, Graham Stringer is a Labour MP for around about the same part of the country, actually, Greater Manchester. And Graham Stringer spoke to Kevin earlier and said that the Prime Minister is wrong to go on holiday 15 days after taking over in number 10. This is what Graham Stringer told Kev.
If I was advising him, I mean, you're making a good point on PR. Not on the PR issue. He's been out of the Commons for a long time. He doesn't know the officials. He doesn't know most of the Parliamentary Labour Party. And a week now spent learning the detailed ropes and the administration and all the problems that will face him would be worth a month or 6 weeks later on, when events in the Commons, events elsewhere start hitting him. So I think he will come to regret it. I understand it's not just been in a job for a fortnight. He's fought an exhausting by-election. He was Mayor of Greater Manchester. Mrs. Burnham presumably wants some of his time. So I understand why he's gone, but I just think practically he is making a mistake.
That was Graham Stringer there, the Labour MP. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is on holiday, and Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has talked about, in her view, the evil trade of small boat crossings. She's here. This is what she said.
I know how frustrating it is to see footage of small boat crossings, like the videos many of us saw last week. But it is easy to see them and think that's the whole story. The truth is, it isn't. We are stopping thousands of attempts to reach this country by small boat, and we are bearing down on the smuggling gangs behind this evil trade.
Shabana Mahmood there, the Home Secretary. Well, let's speak to Henry Bolton, the international security expert who knows a heck of a lot about borders. Henry, there's a lot around about this, not least the mega dinghy carrying 157 migrants catching fire in the Channel. Just tell us what happened today with that, because it's a very disturbing story and it illustrates a wider point. Interestingly, Reform UK and see a use of saying this vindicates their policy and says that if the Royal Navy were to bring migrants back to France and the French would just have to take them, that would work as a policy. What do you think?
Well, there's two questions there. What actually happened? I'm not in the country at the moment, but from what I understand, this was one of the reasons we're seeing larger and larger dinghies with more and more people on board is because they are launching from further down the coast, further to the southwest, even as far down as the Normandy beaches almost. and then they are coming up the coast and collecting people as they go, rather than launching from sort of traditional launch grounds around Calais and so on. And that's why we're seeing the larger boats. And of course, more people on a boat increases the risk if there is a problem. And in this case, I understand it was an engine fire, because these are very badly made, cheaply made outboard engines that they are using on these dinghies, and that somehow caught fire. And then obviously, you've got a rubberized dinghy, you've got fuel, you've got 157 people on board. It's not going to go well in the channel. So that's why it's happening, why we're seeing these bigger dinghies with larger numbers, and therefore any incident is going to be even more major. As for whether or not Reform UK's plan is workable, look, I 100%, and I think you know this, Peter, and so do people watching, you all know that there's probably nobody more dedicated to the cause of stopping these boats than I am. But it is absolutely crucial that the plans that we put in place are absolutely thorough, bulletproof. They are military operation, sort of detailed plans, and I'm afraid the Reform UK plans just simply would not stand contact administratively, legally, diplomatically, or operationally. Most importantly, all the other things can be overcome, but the operational aspect of it simply won't work. And would it stop the boats? It would, if every single boat, every single illegal migrant coming across the channel were to be sent back. If you somehow managed to do that, and this plan would not achieve that, but if it did, then yes, the problem would stop. If the message got through that there is absolutely not even 1% of the migrants would get across the channel. But the ultimate way to stop this is not by deploying the Navy. It is by actually doing two things, Peter. One, stop making the United Kingdom an attractive destination. People come to the UK and will continue to come to the UK, and criminals will continue to market the potential of coming to the UK as long as there is something attractive about doing so. The only solution to that is to securely detain every single man, woman and child who lands on British shores until such time as we can remove them, or they decide that they want to go home. That is the only way. And just earlier, you were talking about housing migrants, various locations around the country.
Yeah, and let's talk about that just in a second, Henry. But I just want to ask you, just on the point you were making there, because you talked about the small boats getting bigger. The average number of people per small boat has apparently increased from 7 in 2018 to 63 in the year ending to March, and up to 70 last month. More people on those boats are going to make them more dangerous, whether intentional or not. There's going to be scuffles, there's going to be dangers on there, and there will be times when people get hurt and injured, and as we saw last week, died.
No dinghy, inflatable dinghy, is designed to carry this number of people. Simply structurally, the rubber sort of infrastructure does not cope with it. So you're raising the risk in all sorts of manners. But sorry, yes, carry on, Pete.
No, that's very interesting just to hear your thoughts on that. We're talking as well about residents in near Gosport in Hampshire. This is the Haslar Immigration Detention Centre. Sorry, it is in Gosport in Hampshire. It closed a decade ago, but it's set to be reopened and enlarged to house 600 foreign criminals and illegal migrants over 3 stories. People living near the site say they've seen the price of their homes drop by as much as £25,000 after the plans were revealed. They fear they'll be left trapped inside them due to a lack of willing buyers. These people, of course, have to go somewhere. No one wants them near them because of the very real effects, not just when it comes to house prices, but of course personal safety as well. There have been numerous times when people simply haven't been safe.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got another case, the former ordnance depot at Bicester is being converted, and it doesn't have the infrastructure for this, even in the base itself. These are stopgap measures. The government said that they would move people out of hotels. They've got to find somewhere else to put them. This is one of the solutions. There's a whole suite of solutions. There's the HMOs, there's new build houses and social housing that they're being put in. There's a whole range of things. And what's happening, as I said it would, everybody was saying, get them out of their hotels, get them out of their hotels, get them out of their hotels. And my question was, that's all very well and good, but where are they going to go? And what we really need, and linked with what I was saying earlier, is we need purpose-built detention facilities to house these people. Well, we don't know who they are. We have no idea. We know some of them have committed the most heinous crimes abroad. We know that some have gone on to commit the most heinous crimes here. I know because I was leading teams that detected the movement in the Southern Balkans some years ago that extremist organizations are feeding extremists into the people smuggling networks in order to infiltrate Western European and Scandinavian countries. So we know there's a threat there. The government knows there's a threat there, and yet these people, who we don't know who they are, we just take their biometrics, they're free to walk. So, and they're also young men, and you put them in a small community, which is, which then is dominated by these young men who they're young men, and young men mixing sort of in a liberal society. You are asking for trouble. None of this is wise or sensible, and I'd go as far as to say it is the government absolutely neglecting its duty to safeguard the British people. So the answer is purpose-built detention facilities. And if people ask you whether we can do that or not, how would we do that? Well, just look at, for example, Camp Bastion, that we built a camp for, well, at some point I think there were 12,000 British troops there in the middle of the desert from nothing. Okay, we did that. We can do it on Salisbury Plain. There's a number of locations we can do that, but these people need to be behind wire until such time as they go. That's A, that's a deterrent, and B, that keeps the British public safe.
Henry, thank you. That is Henry Bolton there, the international security expert. Really appreciate him joining us on the programme today. Loads of people getting in touch about lots of different issues. We'll go to the phones in just a minute or two. One texter says, why are France okay with having a load of illegal people in their country? They're doing nothing to deport them. They just seem to be fine with them by the need to do something for the money. It's just not just nothing. No argument. Why can't they do this? Gary says, your earlier guess is getting a little confused between the Bank of England base rate and the rate at which the UK government can borrow money. He said that in 2010 our government could have borrowed money at 0% to invest in building infrastructure. Well, no, they couldn't, because although the Bank of England base rate went down to 0.5%, the government still had to pay between 3.5% and 4% to borrow money over 10 years. And that's because the people who bankroll our profligate governments see that as a risk and so demand a decent return on their investment, regardless of where the Bank of England said that interest rate should be. Another person says, we haven't had a leader of the country for years. Starmer was Prime Minister only in name, so Burnham not being here is totally irrelevant, just like his predecessors do business and those which aren't do politics. Good evening, says Andy. I have autism, officially diagnosed later in life. I thought all my traits were down to mental illness. I now know they're just part of my character. I don't claim any benefits for autism, but find huge numbers of people who self-diagnosed do. These people are gaslighting the genuine people with autism and taking financial help from those, especially children, who really need it. Great show as always, says Andy in Bridgend. Brian in Spain said, you'd be amazed how little ADHD there is in Spain. Coincidentally, there are no state benefits for this type of thing. Paul in Oxford says, I just love Talk, one of the best days programmes I've ever heard. Ian, Julia, Mark, Kevin and Cardi P, along with Petri later. Deep joy, says Paul in Oxford. Well, I'm delighted, Paul. Very kind. I'll pass that on to the other people you mentioned there. And of course, it's not just the people on the air, it's the people behind the scenes as well who make the programmes happen. David in Leicestershire says, does that lefty Sebastian not realise millions of people are scamming the social security system while working Brits, not immigrants, pay for it? It's because of people like him we are on the verge of disaster. Labour needs to go, hopefully forever. Stephen in Bristol says, regarding the sex toys, if you're in benefits, what will they do for the other 23 hours and 57 minutes? Okay. Trev in Middleton says, Kevin should be delighted Andy Burnham has gone on holiday. Gives him something to bang on about for the next 2 weeks. Crack on, mate. You're doing a great job, pal, says Trev. Alex in Cardiff says, I really enjoyed the panel. You form a great trio. You, Seb and Claire are good together, especially when Claire is telling you off for wearing shorts. Dollop says getting diagnosed with something is free money. And lots of people actually getting in touch about that debate desk, which was slightly surreal with Claire and Sebastian, it must be said. Simon in Portadown says it is an unholy trio of trouble. Well, thank you for that. Lots to discuss. We'll go to the phones in just a second. You want to get your voice on the air? Give me a shout. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
I think what he suspects is that the leadership of Reform is in trouble with all these scandals, apparent scandals over donations. Reform, nevertheless, is well known across the country. Reform as a vehicle is capable, if it has the right leadership, of actually forming a government. And that with the weakened leadership of Reform, there's a risk that Reform itself will be lost. And he doesn't want to lose the potential of a vehicle that could provide the kind of government that he and I and others wish this country to have.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Ernie, who's been in touch and says, "Hi Peter, why do you think organised crime gangs from all over the world are setting up cartels all over Britain? They've got an army of workers and the youth with no work and all the failed asylum seekers wandering our streets. And they know that if they get caught, they'll only do a small amount of time in prison before they're let out. This country has been run by useless wasters for years. Something needs to change, and Burnham can stay on holiday for 3 years and do us all a favour because he's no different to the rest. He gets a massive pay rise for becoming Prime Minister and couldn't spend it quickly enough jetting off on holiday while they're letting killers out to roam our streets. You couldn't make it up," says Ernie. Elaine says, "Can you please ask Sebastian Salek, who was on the debate desk, to stop calling the migrant centres detention centres? The migrants are not detained, and if they were, I dare say there would be a lot fewer objections to having them in built-up areas." Pete in West Yorkshire says, "Although I think the Prime Minister is another waster, he works for the public sector. I work for the public sector, and every time I applied for a new role within the sector, they would always say that if you're successful in getting the role, we will honour any leave that you have booked." Great show, Peter. Kind regards, says Pete in West Yorkshire. Ange says, "OMG, I'm literally about to throw my name of smart speaker. I'm not going to say the word beginning with A, because if I say it, it'll make your smart speaker do something crazy if you're listening. I'm literally about to throw my smart speaker out of the window listening to that Sebastian geezer. Get back to reality," says Ange. Alex says, "I can understand Port Talbot. This town has lost thousands of jobs because of the steelworks. To have the steelworks on one side and then a big prison wouldn't be right. And there's a big prison already in Swansea, but so much open space over England and Wales to build other prisons." Alex, I know what you mean, but prisons can bring loads of employment to an area. It's not just the prison officers, obviously. There's suppliers, there's food, there's all sorts of stuff going in to those prison supplies. You know, there are people supplying beds and all sorts of equipment that go into prisons that really can generate an awful lot of employment. A lot of people don't want them in their area. I totally get that. I understand that, but it can be a boon as well. Another person says, "You should have asked Sebastian, who's whining about austerity, how bad things would have been if the Tories hadn't saved some cash prior to COVID. We would be absolutely broken now." And one before we go to the phones, Fiona says, "Oh please, how can we go from getting so much right to getting everything wrong? This is deliberate, lots of bad choices in management, priorities all wrong. I don't believe it's possible for a country that had a well-oiled machine to be in pieces." Let's speak to Paul, who is in Spain on holidays. Lots of people in touch on Andy Burnham going on holiday. Paul, very good to talk to you. What would you like to say?
Hi, Pete. I'm not on holiday. I live here.
You live in Spain? Okay.
Pete, I have said this to your chap on the reception before. I hope you remember. I think you possibly will. And I just tell him, on the evening when you held an hour about Bonnie Tyler when she died.
Yes.
And I called in and said...
You knew Gaynor as was her actual name. Yes, I remember that.
We had boats together and whatever.
Yeah, I remember talking to you that evening. It was a sad day, but you had great memories of her.
Okay, but I just said to your chap, I wanted 10 seconds to say something. Because I'll be honest with you, I'd never listened to your show for that night, and somebody called me who listens a lot and told me about what you were doing, which is why I chose to call. And then people, over the next 2 or 3 days, I had literally dozens of calls
from
people who'd listened in.
Lovely.
And said about how respectful you was to give me the time to talk about it. I obviously hadn't got the TV on, so I didn't know. but they said you seemed really endorsed in it and you were smiling and whatever. And I had a bit of a joke with you at the end about having a beer, which you've got my number. Give me a call. I'll come to Coca-Cola.
Thank you, Paul. That's very kind of you to say so. And I'm delighted that your friend said that you should ring the station, and I'm delighted those people listened. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I've watched quite a few times since, and I enjoy it. Can I just say something? I said this here last time about, obviously, I'm not going to say who I am, but I'm 71 years old. The last 40 years of my life, I've been the CEO of 2 large companies. I still work. Right? I live in Spain, but I'm the CEO of an American company that want to call me privately. I'll tell you who it is.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
People doing that, right? Andy Burnham, and it depends what you call a holiday. If a holiday is jumping in your car and having a weekend in Blackpool, or jumping on a jet and going to Mauritius, okay, and you're going there to sit on beaches and get away from everything, that's a holiday.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a holiday. I guess you can go and do. When you go to Edinburgh, you'll switch off. He'll never be able to switch off.
That's right. That's right. Well, it's not a holiday in any conventional sense, and never is for any Prime Minister.
I can't. Okay, even years ago, I'd go away with the wife on holiday, and when I would say, go down for breakfast, get us a table. Okay, and as soon as she was out the door, I was on the phone to the office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the same in the afternoon, and the same in the evening. Okay, and it's still like that now.
Mm-hmm. Even though you're 71.
I'm 7. Yeah, I told you, and again, I know you know him. I live across the road from Charlie Mullins, right?
Yeah.
Charlie's sold his business, okay, but now he's got another one.
Yeah.
You probably know about that.
Do you think you're a workaholic, Paul?
Am I a workaholic? I'm conscious about what I do, okay, and I think that if we were to meet and I walk into whatever, having your pint of Coca-Cola, you won't turn around and say, I've got all my own hair, all my own teeth, but I don't look 71.
Yeah. But do you take holidays? Can you ever properly switch off from running 2 businesses, being a chief executive?
I've not had a holiday in the last 40 years.
Okay.
Not a holiday.
You've been away, you've got on a plane, you've gone places, but you've never felt, actually, I've switched off.
You can't, and he can't. And like you made a point, and people are ringing in. You understand it because you've worked in that environment, okay? It will do him good to get away, okay? But he's not on holiday. He's not having a holiday, okay?
Okay.
And I'm not really that much into politics, but is it not all the politicians, are they not all having a break at the moment anyhow?
Well, they are. There's this parliamentary recess at the moment, Paul, and yeah, they are not in Parliament at the moment, but that doesn't mean the work stops, and a lot of constituency work happens as well. Paul, really interesting to talk to you again, and thank you for the very kind words at the start of that call as well, and thanks for your original call too. It was very interesting to hear from Paul about Bonnie Tyler, and it was the day that she very sadly died, and you can go back and listen to that if you want on our website, talk.tv. I think we clipped it up as well. Really appreciate Paul joining us. I want to go now to Cyrus, who's in London, who has some thoughts on the small boat. Cyrus, you're very welcome to the programme.
Hello, good evening, Peter. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. Yeah, what's on your mind this evening?
Besides my hair, basically, I was thinking about immigration, and basically, what I thought, what we have there is a cheap labour force that can compete with our foreign neighbours. Excuse me. Basically, I was thinking because the British farmers are in so much trouble, literally, we're buying produce that we can make grow over here. It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And I think it's just basically coming down to minimum wage, etc. What I suggest is that when people come over, we give them a bit of land near the farm. They work on the farm. It pays their way. British farmers get out of trouble. We could build them a little community. You could grow in it, and they could stay. That would it wouldn't upset people around by because they're on the farm. They're making their own community, etc. etc. We could have lessons for teaching the kids English while the dads and mums are working, so on, etc. It could grow to flourish like that.
But wouldn't it still take jobs away from people in our workforce?
No, sir, because you know why, Peter? Because it's impossible to give them minimum wage. We have to go a lot lower. It's something. It's not a lot, but it's something. I'm talking £1 or £2 an hour.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we get fed, but remember, we're housing.
It's interesting you mention that, actually, because there are lots of people, including a lot of young people who are born in this country, who would say, look, I'll work for less than minimum wage, just give me a job. But that's illegal. You can't do that.
Okay, well, there you go. You see, this is a problem we have in this country, Peter. It's called red tape. When I lived in America for a few years, and I tell you, there's something about them which I do like. If they say they're going to do something, they'll do it. If it doesn't work, they'll go back. We just sit around getting drunk in the House of Commons, having a laugh and chat. Meanwhile, time is ticking. So we change the law regarding this. I just don't understand what the problem is. I understand about them, but they're not buying houses. We're housing them.
Listen, thank you very much for your thoughts there, Cyrus. Appreciate that. Bob in Cheltenham has been in touch on what Mike Neville was saying. He says many prisons aren't fit for purpose, so cramming in porta cabins and any open space in prison won't work. We can't manage the security in many prisons, so taking shortcuts with security to overfill prisons is likely to end in disaster. Shipping prisoners here and there, wherever there might be space, may compromise or interfere with offender management programmes, and moving some prisoners miles away from their families may also be counterproductive to rehabilitation and reintegration back into the community, says Bob. Also, tagging companies can't cope. Breaches of tag will normally only result in remands if further offences have been committed. Also, tags sometimes don't work in basement flats and caravans in the middle of countryside. Decades of underfunding of the criminal justice system have irreparably broken it. Thank you, Bob, for that. Wendy says, my employer has just employed an inexperienced Polish trainee part-time. We didn't need a trainee, so I asked why. He said he gets tax breaks. When I asked the new Polish guy why he came to Britain, and he said in Poland he doesn't get welfare for ADHD. So in short, my taxes are paying an immigrant to stay at home in the mornings and paying my boss to employ them in the afternoon. You couldn't make it up, Wendy. That is just farcical. Thank you for bringing it to us. Dawn in Chelmsford says your debate on lack of prison places, lack of money, nothing works, etc. ignores the elephant in the room. Massive population increases. What did we expect would happen? Dawn, that is a very good point. Why does nothing work? That is a very, very big point and a good point. But if you've got an increase in population of 10 or 12 million, if it were people who were here contributing, net contributors paying taxes, you would have money for the infrastructure. The problem is there is no money. So Dawn, it's a really good point, and I will engage with it certainly as the show goes on. Neil says, didn't Sebastian understand Labour nearly bankrupted us and he would have borrowed more money? Typical left. Merv says, Burnham has made, he was going to do something about this for the last week. Sebastian is correct that you can't do something for one person and not for another. I have zero sympathy for Burnham. He wanted the job. We didn't like the holiday entitlement. We could put up Nightingale prisons for low-risk prisoners. I'm talking about fraud and such like. Gosport is being opened up for immigrants. Don't let them in. Then we have places for low-risk prisoners. This is nonsense. The Labour government is useless. The previous Tory government was pretty bad latterly. They all know the situation, and Burnham now is about to say he didn't know and is not responsible. Grow a pair, Burnham. You watch, Peter. All his little bites he has put out his social media will be reversed and blamed on someone else. It won't be long before he blames Starmer. Leslie says, I'm really enjoying your humour, really needed with the doom and gloom. Well, I appreciate that, Leslie, and your loyalty to the programme. I know you're a regular correspondent. Lenny in Ashford is too. He says, I'm sorry, Peter, but I believe the bouncing bomb Burnham needs to show enthusiasm because he has been hiding from any scrutiny. It is difficult to understand what he actually stands for. So continue hiding on holiday. It gives no confidence at all. Mrs. Bouquet says, respectfully, no, I don't know anyone who would land their dream job and then go straight on holiday. Angela says, good evening, Peter. I'm 50-50 on Andy's getaway, but I guess he's kept informed of serious issues while away. Yeah, he is. However, I do think it's a bad look. I seem to remember the same issue with Boris Johnson, who went camping. If he did fewer media bites and clips, I might take him seriously. Well, Angela, keep watching, because in just a moment we're going to have Clash of the Titans. James Mathewson, the broadcaster and political commentator, and George Madgwick, the Reform UK councillor, leader on Hampshire Council, are going to be talking about Burnham's holiday. I want your views too on all of this. It's the most reactive thing we've done this evening, and whatever you want to say and however you want to say it, please do get in touch. 0344 499 1000. James will be with us in a second, as will George, and I want to hear from you too. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody who's been in touch, including Dawn, who says, good evening, Peter. The early release of Killers sends a certain message. Victims don't matter what is happening to our country. Penny says the Justice Secretary says that early release prisoners will be monitored by the police. What a total farce. He's a disgrace. They can't even arrest a shoplifter. The passengers in the car that killed PC Harper will be let out after 6 years, but not the driver, who all laughed in court. It makes my teeth itch with anger, but why not send back the hundreds of migrants taking up spaces? Who cares if they don't go to prison in their own countries? How many women here will live in fear of their abusers turning up at the door? The inmates are running the asylum, they really are. Alex says, I think all the politicians have got some form of sunstroke, and at this point in time, a liability. They all need to leave us alone with their number 10 North and discussing what to call a BAP. If they could all go away until after recess, I think it would be vital for the country, says Alex. Well, lots to discuss on all of that. We're going to go in just a second to James Mathewson and Councillor George Madgwick, but before then, we heard from some people in and around London about what they thought about Andy Burnham going on holiday. Let's hear what the great general public think.
I don't think he should be taking a holiday at all, to be perfectly honest with you, but if he's still going to be working and he needs to be close by to England, then yeah, it might make sense to do it in the country, wouldn't it?
Look, truthfully, anywhere he wants. It's up to him, isn't it? It's his holiday.
I think that given the current state of the climate emergency and the wildfires that are going mad across Europe, every bit of carbon that is going into the atmosphere matters, and he should be living by example and being a climate leader and using aviation and travelling abroad is not ideal.
Do you think you should have gone on holiday in the UK?
That's a Starmer move, going to Europe all the time.
No, I think he can do most things from Europe, and a holiday in the UK probably wouldn't be much of a holiday for him. No, I think it's fine to go to Europe.
Amazing.
I mean, Europe's still close to the UK anyway.
I mean, when people go on holiday, and especially when they have the funds that he has, you're not really going to go on holiday in the UK. You want to get some sunlight. That being said, we've had a heat wave here in London, but you're going to want to go somewhere different. You know, he's born and raised in the UK, so ideally he wants to go somewhere different. So I think if that holiday was pre-arranged, it probably wasn't in the UK. So I think that's unfair to say he should do it in the UK and then all of a sudden he's going to be able to fix the problems that are here in the UK.
I enjoyed the woman with sort of obligatory headband saying that the carbon emissions were the problem. Yeah. Let's go to James Mathewson, who's a broadcaster and political commentator, and Councillor George Madgwick, who's the leader of Reform UK in Hampshire. On Burnham's holiday, you're both very, very welcome to the programme. George, what's the problem here? Man goes on holiday with family. It's the summer, it's August. OK, he's only been in the job 15 days, but, you know, taking a break. A lot of people do it. What do you think?
You know, I think in the stereotypical climate, yeah, it's absolutely fine for a man with kids to go on a holiday during August, absolutely. But this isn't the stereotypical person, is it? This is a unique person with a unique position. He just come into this role 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks he's been in position and he's decided to go on holiday, which is completely unacceptable. The man is just starting to govern the country. He's just formed his first cabinet. He's got serious amounts of problems on the table that he has to deal with. And I would expect him to actually use this month to spend the time to plan what he's going to do from September when Parliament comes back into action. Instead, he swanned off to a holiday, which is a complete dereliction of duties, in my opinion.
OK, James, what do you think? Dereliction of duty?
Yeah, strong words from George there. I do think there's two aspects to this. Firstly, the first is that Andy Burnham is the Prime Minister. He's, been appointed into that through our processes that exist. I am not a representative of his. I'm not even a member of the Labour Party. I might vote for him if it came to a general election, just to be open with you. I like what he's offering at the moment. But he has just had quite an incredible few months, hasn't he, leading up to the Makerfield by-election, the success there, then obviously going into number 10 as well in the way that he has. None of it's been ordinary. But then on top of that, the bloke is a human being with a family. It's the summer holidays. We can't expect somebody not to be a human being to go on holiday when they want. And then the second part of this that I would like to put to George directly is, I find it fascinating, George, that you would be outraged by this, when I don't think you would have a problem if Nigel Farage was doing this. I think if Nigel Farage was the Prime Minister and he jetted off to one of his luxury holidays that he goes on quite regularly, or if he was in the US, as he has been more than he's been in Clacton, let's be honest, if he was doing that...
Well, you don't know that, James. You don't know he's been in the US more than he's been in Clacton.
Well, he's been in the US a hell of a lot for an MP.
He's been in the US a lot, but you don't know that he's been there more than in Clacton. George, what do you think?
I mean, with all due respect, Nigel Farage isn't Prime Minister, and if he was Prime Minister and went on a holiday within 2 weeks, I'd have exactly the same opinion. I think the issue here, as I say, is that he's just formed this government, and he shouldn't be on holiday. You know, you say, James, that yes, you know, he's had a busy couple of months. Well, that's self-inflicted. He's chose this job, he's chose this role, he's chosen to stand for the highest office in this country gives, and that comes with a certain level of responsibility and expectations. The people of this country replaced Keir Starmer because we lacked leadership, because we lacked clarity, because we lacked confidence in what the Labour Party was doing. Now, Burnham's come in, and you're quite right to say that, you know, things have been going okay for him. The polls have just started to increase for him, which is great. However, we expect him to act and be on the ground and supporting our country and our people that we so desperately need. Him leaving is completely irresponsible behaviour. It's completely unnecessary, and the man was fully aware of what he was getting himself into.
One at a time. Let's go back to James.
Irresponsible. It's fascinating to me that in the same week that we've seen Reform UK MPs use a migrant crisis in Spain to fuel their own rhetoric and claim that migrants are on the edge of coming here. You know, Suella Braverman.
Lots of migrants have come here. We had 752 the other day. James, this is not about Reform UK. It's about Andy Burnham.
I'm not sure what the relevance is. I'm not sure what the relevance
hold on. One at a time. Let's do James first. I'll come back to you.
If I could finish my point, then I'll make the I'll tell you why it's relevant.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The point is here that we're talking about being irresponsible when being in office, when holding office. There is no more person in this country in elected office who has been irresponsible with that than Nigel Farage at the moment. And the Reform UK MPs who we are seeing use dangerous rhetoric time and time again, jumping on every single bit of news.
Okay, fair enough.
To try and make that. That's the point.
This is not about Nigel Farage, it's about Andy Burnham. And I want to talk, we talk a lot about Nigel Farage. I'm happy to talk about Nigel Farage, but this particular debate is about Andy Burnham. George, you know, politicians like yourself, you're an elected politician. I know you work hard. I've interviewed you on many occasions. You've brought me stories. We talked about things that you've worked very, very diligently on. I want politicians to be rested. I want them to have sleep. I want them to have breaks. I want them to make sure they're clearly thinking. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but surely Andy Burnham can clear his head and then think, right, Parliament's on recess. Now's a good time. It's not going to be a good time in October, November sort of time. He's coming up to a budget and all the rest of it. If he's going to take a break, surely now's the time. And he is essentially his own boss, is he not?
He is his own boss. I mean, James is using a lot of whataboutery because he doesn't seem to be able to defend Andy Burnham in this conversation at all. But yes, you are absolutely correct. But he is his own boss. But he is the Prime Minister of this country.
Should he never take a holiday?
No, of course he should, absolutely.
When? When should he take a holiday, George?
He should take a holiday once he's made the government stable, once he's got into office, once he's got his cabinet
But there's going to be, hold on, James, there's going to be another crisis. There's going to be a crisis all the time. It's Britain. There's going to be a perma crisis. In Easter, there's going to be a crisis. In next summer, there's going to be a crisis that he's going to deal with. People are saying today he's got to deal with the prisons crisis. That's still going to be there at Christmas, isn't it?
Of course it is, but there's a big difference here, a massive difference, is that at Christmas or next summer, he'd have been in office for longer than 2 weeks. This man wasn't even an MP a couple of months ago. He doesn't know the civil service inside out. He doesn't know...
He's been health secretary.
He has, but over a decade ago. You know, we're talking a long time ago. The civil servant has absolutely changed since then. My principle is that when you join a company, and like you joined talkTV, when you first step through that door, you don't know everybody inside out. You don't know the organisation. You don't know its structure. You don't know how it operates. You learn that. And you build rapport with your team. You learn who you can trust and not trust in situations.
So it's a very good point, George. And James, George makes a good point, does he not? I had a colleague who just started working with me 4 months ago, something like that. And he said, I'm going to try not to take any holiday at all in the first 3 or 4 months to get to know the role, to get under the skin of the company, to the programme that he works on. I thought that was a very good idea. Maybe Andy Burnham should have done the same thing.
I disagree. I think he has every right to take his break when he wants to. As we say, he is his own boss. George speaks from the perspective of a business person as well. But George, I notice you're the business person who was taking the tribunal. Many of your companies taking the tribunal.
This is not about... No, come on. This isn't George. This is not about George. This is not about George's thing.
No, this is relevant entirely because we have an elected politician here voicing his representation for the Reform Party, of which he is a member, and he is standing up to criticise Andy Burnham when I think it's entirely disingenuous. When, George, you yourself have been criticised many times as a dodgy businessman who won't pay.
No, hold on. Hold on.
you can talk about how to be a boss.
James, we're getting into legally contentious territory.
No,
if you're going to say
that,
you are. No, James, I'm going to take you off the air if you don't withdraw that comment. Are you going to withdraw that comment?
I'm not withdrawing that comment because it is reported by.
Are you going to withdraw the comment, James?
It is reported in the news. It is justified by court records. You were taken to tribunal, George. That is the truth.
You called him a dodgy businessman. Are you going to withdraw that comment?
That's a personal opinion, and I stand by it.
George?
I think I should have a right to reply, and this is why it's dangerous to do what James has just done. He's read an article online and believes it on face value, but if he understood what happened in that situation, and thank you for giving me the right to reply here, if he understood what happened in that situation, these were companies that were dormant years ago. I wasn't aware of them, of the tribunals. The paper actually made me aware of them. Once they did, I set an application to set aside the judgments, and those have both been granted. So in fact, James, all of the tribunals, or all two of the tribunals you're talking about, have been set aside by the legal process and by the judge, and they are no longer standing. So an apology actually would be welcome.
James, you've got to let him finish. You've got to let him finish. You've got to let him finish.
It doesn't change the fact that as an elected official, the public has the right to know, and members of your staff...
What's that got to do with anything we're talking about?
Staff who hold to this fact that they were withheld wages by you. That is a matter of public record, and they stand to that. But what the point is here, Peter, the point I'm trying to make with this is that we have Reform UK politicians coming out and trying to voice criticism at a Prime Minister who, if it was Nigel Farage, they wouldn't dare do it. They won't criticise the money that he's had.
George has said earlier in this discussion that he would have exactly the same position and exactly the same opinion.
Why aren't you calling out Nigel Farage over the £5 million, George? Why aren't you doing that right now?
James, and you seem very angry.
James, you need to let George speak. James, we can't have a debate if you don't let other people speak. George.
Yeah, I mean, James seems very irate and angry, and it's a lot of deflection from the key topic. You know, he's trying to attack Nigel, he's trying to attack Reform, he's trying to attack me personally with absolutely misguided and inaccurate information. But what he can't do is fundamentally, like a lot of these people on the left of politics can't do, and that's answer a simple question. He can't defend Andy Burnham going on holiday. He's got no reasonable grounds for that argument, and he's come on your show today looking really inept for this conversation and trying to use personal insults to try and win a debate. But the fundamental fact is, James, is I want to hear from you why you feel it is acceptable for the Prime Minister, forget Andy Burnham, any Prime Minister in this country to leave the country that they've just been elected to within 2 weeks of office. How do you find that reasonable and responsible?
I find it totally reasonable because, as I've said, he is his own boss. He's the leader of the country. He gets to decide when he takes his breaks, as Peter said, and there would be no better time. If you did it in a few weeks' time, you would be saying, oh, it's no good time now, or you shouldn't be doing it now. If you did it in the lead up to the budget in the autumn, you'd be saying exactly the same thing. And that's why my point stands, George, that I don't believe a word that comes out of any of your mouths in the Reform Party, because I don't represent the Labour Party. There's no guarantee I would vote for Andy Burnham tomorrow if there was a general election. But I don't have an issue with our Prime Minister, whoever it is, taking a break at this stage. He's done a raft of policy decisions, each and every one of them you've criticised, and yet you stand here trying to take the moral high ground on something when your leader, who wants to be Prime Minister, has taken this £5 million from Christopher Harbourne and won't explain why, and you have no issue with it.
He has explained on numerous occasions why he took the money. Final word to George.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as I say, my opinion is, and let's go back to the actual topic of conversation rather than this whataboutery that James has brought to this conversation. Let's go back to the point of conversation. And I truly believe the Prime Minister, whomever that should be from any party, past, present or future, has a certain responsibility to this country. And that responsibility should be to put the people first, ensure that the Cabinet and the office is running effectively and efficiently. And I don't see how any Prime Minister can do that after being in the office or the role for only 2 weeks.
George, I thank you both very much. Thank you to James Mathewson and thank you to George as well. And George, I want to make it absolutely clear that it is not the opinion of this station or me personally the allegation that James made there, and I want to apologise that was broadcast because it shouldn't have been. But listen, thank you for joining us on the programme. That is James Mathewson, the broadcaster and political commentator, and Councillor George Madgwick, who's the leader of Reform UK in Hampshire. Now then, lots to discuss. Thank you to everybody who has been in touch, including Andrea, who just said, I just heard the guy on your show say that Andy Burnham is his own boss. He isn't. He's supposed to work for us, the electorate. Claire says James is a disgrace. Clayton in Dartford says, why does James Mathewson make everything about reform and Nigel Farage? It seems Nigel is living rent-free in Mathewson's head, and there's plenty of room there. Well, Clayton, the point, I suppose, is that George Madgwick is a Reform UK councillor, so he was talking about that in that context, I suppose. One of your last guests says, Joe in Fife said the people of this country replaced Starmer. No, they didn't. The change of Prime Minister was set in motion by over just 20,000 people in Makerfield and the Labour MPs. Andrew says, back in the day, August was known as the silly season. Seems like it's back with all this hullabaloo about Andy Burnham's holiday. Zarina says, your guests need to give Andy Burnham a break. It's the recess. The guy needs a holiday. He has a lot of hard work ahead of him, especially as he has promised us so much. Brian says, dereliction of duty, as your guest said. I would use that staying in the context of the small boats crisis, a dereliction of duty towards the British people. Also, Dalton says, I do agree with you, he's entitled to a holiday wherever he wants, but the optics aren't good at all. He should spend the first 100 days identifying the issues facing the country and coming up with a solution for those issues. If he's going on holiday, it suggests he has identified the issues and has a plan. The problem with this is there hasn't been enough time to generate accurate reports by his own people, so he's using that data and strategy Starmer and co had in mind already. He's clearly not coming up with his own ideas based on data his team have gathered. Martin says, ordinary people can't go on holiday at the moment because the prices are virtually double in the summer holidays. And listen, I totally appreciate that, Martin. I don't have kids, and I also, I'm not limited to term, like some friends of mine, for example, who are teachers, for example. I have a number of friends who are teachers who can only go on holiday, obviously, in the school holidays, although they have huge and very long holidays, and that's a matter of debate too. But the point, I suppose, is that, you know, I am very lucky I can go on holiday, sort of, you know, I can choose the time. And a lot of people are in that situation, but many who have kids in school and so on aren't. Frank says, Andy not switching off on holiday, from what I want to know. Has he switched on yet? That is Frank in Hereford. Lots to discuss, including this ludicrous story about the Irish government jet not being able to land in fog because they've said, ooh, Israeli technology, we don't want that. Well, I tell you what else is Israeli technology. Every single smartphone in this country. You don't want Israeli technology? Throw your smartphone in the bin. Otherwise, you can give me a ring, or you can send me a text, or send me a WhatsApp, 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about that in a second.
I think what he suspects is that the leadership of Reform is in trouble with all these scandals, apparent scandals over donations. Reform, nevertheless, is well known across the country. Reform as a vehicle is capable, if it has the right leadership, of actually forming a government. And that with the weakened leadership of Reform, there's a risk that Reform itself will be lost. And he doesn't want to lose the potential of a vehicle that could provide the kind of government that he and I and others wish this country to have.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Robin's been in touch and is angry with James Mathewson. He says your guest, James, is a disgrace. You, Peter, quite rightly on a number of occasions tried to remind him that the topic under discussion is about what it's actually about, which was Andy Burnham taking a holiday. It was nothing to do with Nigel Farage. James's whataboutery and his opportunistic railing against reform is pathetic. Zarina says apparently farmers may be better off not planting their fields and can receive money to leave them. Maybe mobile homes could be placed on the farmers' fields and the farmers could be paid to house them, at the same time give the migrants an opportunity to do voluntary work in exchange. Lots to discuss now, and Jonathan Sakadotti is with us. He is a journalist and broadcaster. Jonathan, I don't know about you, but it would take a heart of stone not to laugh at this story. Please tell me, just explain what it is.
Yeah, it is a funny story because Ireland, which is massively anti-Israel in every possible way it can find, has now decided that the new €53 million Dassault Falcon 6X, which is used mainly to transport the Taoiseach and other ministers.
So it's a government jet? It's a government jet?
Yeah, it's a jet. It's going to be delivered without the Israeli-made Falcon Eye enhanced vision system. And that is just something, it's not really an accidental addition. It's something that helps them land in fog and challenging conditions. So it means that they're limiting the ability to land in the most challenging of conditions, though of course they are insisting that it's not such a big deal and that this is part of their principles and that, they're removing it because it's an optional thing that they can get rid of because it's obviously tainted and dirty because it was developed by those dirty, filthy Israeli Jews, and they just don't want that in Irish aircraft, I suppose. So it's understandable, but you might call it, cutting off your, vision to spite your. I'm not sure where to go.
That's what your nose. Yeah. You can't actually land. They land in Baldonnel Airport. I had a very sniffy person on Twitter saying I had pointed out, I asked AI and said how many days of fog have there been in County Dublin or at Dublin Airport. I said in the last year, in 2025, there were 33 days of fog, which made it difficult to land. It's Ireland, and someone very sniffily said, well, they don't land at Dublin Airport, they land at Ballydonnel, which is a military airport. I googled Ballydonnel, which I'd never heard of, and thought, well, first of all, I'm not Irish, so I didn't know that it was at Ballydonnel, and second, and I didn't know anyway, and secondly, it's also in County Dublin, which also presumably had fog, even though it was in a different part of the...
but maybe they've got some amazing Irish technology that can just clear fog. That's probably what it is. And it's silly because Ireland's already materially tied to Israeli products, especially in medicine and defence. So medicines, Israel's got Teva, which is headquartered in Israel. It's one of the largest suppliers of prescription medicines to Irish pharmacies. And Teva's said that about 1 in 8 generic prescriptions in Ireland is filled with their products. And it supplies cholesterol drugs, antibiotics, anti-infectives, painkillers, all sorts of things like that. Generic drugs that make it cheap and affordable for Irish people to be able to get medicine. So maybe they should ditch all that.
And don't forget the mobile phones, because obviously smartphones have... Every single smartphone has Israeli technology in it. So if they get rid of all the smartphones, they'll be pure, won't they?
Absolutely. Smartphones, a lot of computer chips, a lot of technologies, and directly benefiting the Irish, the Europeans, us Brits here in the UK. These are all, it's an absurd idea to try and boycott Israeli products.
It's also not. It does this thing as well, which drives me crazy, Jonathan, where people cannot divorce the people of a country from their leaders. Now, you may or may not think, Benjamin Netanyahu is a wonderful person. I happen not to think he's great, but support him in many ways as well. But I mean, the fact that an Israeli company which is supplying this navigation equipment and navigation technology is held responsible for the actions of the Israeli state, or maybe that's not even it, maybe it's just Israel in general, that I find crazy. I mean, you wouldn't go up to an English person abroad and say, well, obviously every single word that comes out of Andy Burnham's mouth is your fault, Jonathan.
Well, listen, trust me, I don't think it's got anything to do with Benjamin Netanyahu. If he weren't the Prime Minister, these bores would be going on about whoever it would be instead and boycotting Israeli products. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu didn't make the technology that went in that plane. And in fact, it's just hypocritical because even in defence, their new Airbus helicopters contain Halionics avionics, which incorporates Elbit technology, which is Israeli. And those systems are integral to those aircraft, and they were accepted by the Irish because they couldn't remove that. So, when it comes to actually standing by what they're saying is important to them, it's irrelevant. Their C-295 maritime patrol aircraft also reportedly contain Israeli-manufactured radar technology. The Falcon 6X case is really not Ireland refusing to get rid of Israeli technology at all. It's like many of these things. It's a massive piece of theatre just to try and, you know, stick two fingers up at the state of Israel while it's involved in a war which is a direct result of an invasion by Palestinians in the south of the country, and then a coordinated seven-front attack by the Islamic Republic of Iran's regime and its proxies in the region. Honestly, they deserve not to be able to land in the fog if this is how they're going to behave.
Jonathan, you're the sort of Swiss Army knife guest that knows a little bit about everything. You know a heck of a lot about aviation. I think even if it's nothing to do with, you know, Israel or anti-Semitism or the kind of general reasons we get you on the programme, if there's just like, you know, an airline story, I think we'll get you on the next time. You know a lot of this stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what, I just happened like a couple of weeks ago to have interviewed for my podcast. I interviewed the chairman of Rafael Systems, which is another Israeli defence company. And actually it's interesting because he was telling me all the different ways that they and other Israeli defence companies are actually already very, very tightly involved in European, British, even Irish technologies. Without the Israeli technology, our defence systems would not be much good anyway. And there's a reason for that. It's because Israel often has to fight wars. So actually, their technology is not just advanced because the country is technologically advanced and the people there are smart. It's because they're battle-tested and they actually can defend themselves.
In my part of the world, they had some, for horrible reasons too, they had some of the best surgeons when it came to dealing with people with gunshot wounds and victims of bombs back in the Troubles. Jonathan, really interesting to talk to you. As always, Jonathan Sashadotty there, who's a journalist and broadcaster. Lots to discuss on all of these matters. We'll talk about autism as well. Is it too easy to simply say you're autistic? Are the tests there properly? Should you get benefits for it? Let me know your thoughts on all of that and anything else you want to discuss. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots to discuss this evening. Thank you so much for your company here in the Evening Exchange. It's just gone 9 o'clock. We're going to talk about autism in a second. As social media made it too popular, can anyone of any age simply now have it? This is an expert on autism who says that it's far too easy to have diagnosed and then claim benefits for. What do you think? We'll also talk about Andy Burnham's holiday. Loads of people getting in touch about that. We'll also talk about Billy's Bus. Dedicated West Yorkshire dog bus service plans nationwide expansion. Laura, who's founded it, and possibly Billy the dog, will join us later on, but only on Zoom. There'll only be one large dumb animal in the studio. Also, Europe could fit the bill in a new plan to reopen Hormuz. That's a bit of breaking news this evening. Also, Number 10 is expected to announce plans for government procurement to offer social value. It's understood to focus on backing British jobs, skills and opportunities while targeting needs, care leavers and local communities. Loads to discuss this evening. Lots of ways to get involved. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter or Cardwell Peter on Instagram. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or just give me a ring. We'll have a discussion between now and 10 o'clock. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, get in touch. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here in the Evening Exchange. Loads of people getting in touch this evening. Paul in Belfast says there are many prisons in the UK with a majority in large sites with lots of free space. Instead of building a brand new prison, it would be far easier, cheaper and quicker to build extra accommodation wings on existing prisons. Fiona says, I think the people deserve to know what the government looked at as alternatives before letting these killers free. I think Burnham deserves a holiday. TikTok, coffee mornings and constant smiles is hard going when it's not the norm. Phil in Portsmouth says, Peter, didn't Angela Rayner bring out a policy that allowed employees to claim mental health, etc. on day one? It seems quite clearly that Andrew Burnham has taken advantage of this, so nothing to see here. Tonya says, let's not forget Carla Denyer is taking time out of her MP work, probably getting paid, so Burnham can have his 2 weeks. This is a big thing. Lots of people getting in touch about it. Jane as well says, whilst your programme is discussing all the problems of the country, the person in charge of trying to solve them is on his holidays. Pete in Essex says, remember the pylon when Boris went away on holidays to Scotland in August 2020, a few months after nearly dying? I bet Burnham, or at least some of his supporters, would have joined that particular chorus. Another person says, the thing is there's such a limited amount you can do when Parliament is in recess. To get things done, you need both houses open. I agree with Peter, they should take a holiday because it's just sound bites until Parliament reconvenes. Wayne says, this is the 21st century. Why does Parliament have to shut down at all? There's 650 of them. Why does Parliament not stagger holidays for members like every other organisation other than schools does? To shut Parliament down completely in this day and age is absolutely ridiculous. Wayne, I think I agree with you. The thing is as well, they're not all completely on holiday. I mean, there are long recesses, but they do a lot of constituency work and other things. Certainly when I was in government, we went loads of different visits. We visited loads of different places around the country, ministerial visits. We did a lot of work that, we weren't tied to the parliamentary timetable. We could do a bit more and a few other things. Well done, Claire, saying we don't have top calibre MPs earlier on, responding to an earlier message. And quite a lot of response to James Mathewson as well, who was on a little while ago. Peter, you failed to take control and allow that James guy to ruin this evening's show. He has real issues with anyone who's not left in Labour. Please don't have him on future shows, says Thomas in Coventry. Thomas, I disagree with you, but thank you for your message. Gary says, James Mathewson just said that he is not a member of the Labour Party but would consider voting for Burnham because he likes his policies. Great. So can James tell the rest of us what those policies are? Because Burnham has said little publicly about what he is going to do about so many of the huge issues this country faces, let alone how he's going to pay for the new few policies he actually has announced. That is really what is so wrong with him going on holiday right now. He has said so little about the issues that voters care most about. Keep your messages coming in, keep your calls coming in, 0344 499 1000. I want to talk just a little bit and bring you a couple of clips about a really disturbing story. This is, of course, the prisons issue that so many people have contacted us about. And there is a man who just says it really, really clearly. Tim Edwards is his name. He's the father of a beautician, Elle Edwards, who was shot outside a pub. He said it is a massive kick in the teeth that a man who assisted her murder will be eligible for early release. She was killed by a gunman, Connor Chapman, who fired a submachine gun into a group of people outside a pub in the Wirral on Christmas Eve in 2022. It's 4 years on from that. Tim is still hurting, and someone who assisted in that, not the murderer, but someone who assisted in that crime, will get out soon. Let's hear what he had to say.
For people like us, and especially in our case with Ellie's case, the person who assisted in her murder fits the criteria for early release. It's like kicking the teeth. And again, it just shows that the families and the victims don't get a say in any of this. And it just shows that they don't care. And it's devastating to wake up to a phone call yesterday to say that there's going to be absolutely no change, other than obviously for paedophiles and rapists, which quite rightly so, but then everyone else is still unaffected, so they're free to walk in October. And like I said, it's a massive kick in the teeth.
Well, that was Tim Edwards. His daughter, Elle Edwards, was killed by a gunman who fired a submachine gun into a group of people outside a pub in the Wirral. Someone who was helping the killer in that crime will be released soon. We've heard, of course, from PC Andrew Harper's family as well. They're absolutely devastated and know that not the murderer, but two people who assisted in that murder will be released probably by Christmas, serving less than half their sentence. Alex Norris is the Justice Secretary. He says that this is a terrible thing, but it's just the way it is. Let's hear from the Justice Secretary.
When we came to government 2 years ago, we were days away from prison places running out. That would have meant people being arrested but then bailed straight home and not being able to go to prison for crimes they committed. You know, we are changing that reality, as you see here. We're building prison places at a rapid scale, 14,000 places coming like these out of the ground. We've also made important changes to sentencing to make sure we do have enough prison places. Without those sentencing changes, we would run out in October or November of this year. Now, that is about, yes, a slightly earlier release, but with significant control in the community. We have managed to bring forward significant change, because quite rightly families, many families, including the families that you mentioned there, are really upset about it, and they feel that they're carrying the can for previous failures, and they're right. And that shouldn't be the case, but we have to fix this system, and the reforms we're doing, that's what we do to fix these systems, as well as, of course, what we're doing here today.
The other big controversy is something less serious, but something a lot of people want to talk about and do feel very strongly about. I believe Andy Burnham is right to take a holiday. It's the summer, it's August. Loads of people disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine, because in this programme, Freudian slip there, on this programme, we disagree without being disagreeable. But Graham Stringer, who is a Labour MP, told Kevin O'Sullivan earlier on Drive that he thinks the Prime Minister's wrong.
If I was advising him, I mean, you're making a good point on PR, not on the PR issue. He's been out of the Commons for a long time. He doesn't know the officials. He doesn't know most of the Parliamentary Labour Party. And a week now spent learning the detailed ropes and the administration and all the problems that will face him would be worth a month or 6 weeks later on, when events in the Commons, events elsewhere start hitting him. So I think he will come to regret it. I understand it's not just been in a job for a fortnight. He's fought an exhausting by-election. He was Mayor of Greater Manchester. Mrs. Burnham presumably wants some of his time. So I understand why he's gone, but I just think practically he is making a mistake.
Graham Stringer speaking to Kevin O'Sullivan a little bit earlier on. Well, thank you to everybody who's been in touch about that, including David. He says, "Hi Peter, great show. I can't agree with you on Burnham. No mandate, no manifesto, hides from the press, spent a year stabbing Starmer in the back with a cushy number as a mayor. Then he takes a holiday. I would love to have a beer with you, as you're right on so many things, but not this. He should be hard at it. Great show," says David in Leicestershire. "P.S. it terrifies me that these Labour idiots are in charge of our nuclear arsenal." David, I would love to have a beer. Well, you can have a beer. I'll have a Diet Coke, pint of Diet Coke. But yeah, and the best thing is that loads of my friends, loads of people who are very valued listeners, contributors, all sorts of people, we disagree without being disagreeable. That is the beauty of this show. Not everybody thinks the same things. I love interviewing people who disagree with me and tell me I'm wrong, because it makes me think, what do I actually think about this? Can I learn? Or is there stuff I need to learn? Is there stuff I need to realise so my opinion is better and better informed? It can't just be an echo chamber, and that is part of what I love about this job, because you learn stuff every single day. David, thank you for your message. It is, I think, perhaps the best one of the evening. Certainly touched a good nerve, a happy nerve with me, so I appreciate that. Let's talk about autism now, because many autistic British people may not in fact have the disorder. This is according to a leading expert in the condition. She has warned this amid an alarming urge in diagnoses. The definition of autism has become too broad, vague, influenced by misleading ideas. This is not just some quack. This is Professor Dame Ute Frith. She's from the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience at the University of London. She authored pioneering research in the 60s and 70s that defined the medical establishment's understanding of autism and its impact on daily life. She has remarked on the dramatic change in criteria for diagnosis over the last 80 years. She says, when it was first identified in the 1940s, it referred to a small group of children with severe difficulties in social interaction, communication and behaviour. Over time, the definition has widened to include people with milder traits and no language or learning problems. Today, anyone of any age or intelligence level can be diagnosed with autism if they meet certain criteria. She said the term has become a catch-all diagnosis. It's interesting as well that we don't talk about things like Asperger's anymore because it's all meant to be on the autistic spectrum. Well, the academic and author Dr. Lisa Mackenzie joins me now. Lisa, what do you make of this? Great to see you.
Good to see you, and thanks for having me on again. I've noticed this over, perhaps the last 5 or 6 years, actually, since COVID, since the lockdowns. I work in a university, and I've seen this rise with students with, varied and many different learning difficulties. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying that they don't have them and they're not real, but I think because we know more about different learning difficulties, there has been, I suppose people want to know. They want to know whether, the problems that they're facing, are they the everyday problems of a stressful contemporary life, or is there something else wrong with them? And then the other thing, Peter, as I think we should also talk about, is the industry of learning difficulties now, because now you get a private diagnosis from a private clinic because the NHS waiting list is so long, but also there are private prescriptions as well. This runs into thousands of pounds.
Yes, it does. And we're in a situation as well where on TikTok and other parts of social media, there are people saying, this is what you have to say to someone who's assessing you for something like PIP, which is hard to get, but some people get it, of course. Many people get it. And I just wonder whether, I mean, this nonsense as well, that sort of everyone's on the autistic spectrum, everyone's somewhere. I mean, if you're 0 out of 10, does that make you on the autistic spectrum? Does that make you on the spectrum to be, if you've no traits whatsoever of someone who's good at football, does that put me on the football spectrum? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. And there is, I agree with this professor that there is a catch-all diagnosis. I think there's over-inclusion is what she said here. Autism is a really serious thing, and what I worry about, and I wonder what you think, Lisa, is that for people who actually are autistic, for parents who are dealing with autistic children who really are struggling and deal with that on a daily basis, it minimises it. It says, oh, well, it's not that serious in a way because loads of people can have it in lots of different ways. Is that fair?
No, it's not. And, for those of us who work in education, we know what the difficulties around getting proper support and SEND places in schools, different tutors so those students can actually get the support. And now we know that our councils are being absolutely overrun and schools are being overrun by learning difficulties, the things that they have to now put in place for children with learning difficulties. I think that we do have to have a conversation now about the contemporary world that we live in, accepting that it's difficult, actually, the contemporary world is difficult, that online, offline, for young people who are trying to straddle that, I think is quite difficult. And I think for some people, that difficulty, they then want a diagnosis for the difficulty of life.
Yes, and that diagnosis, I suppose it's always good to know if there is a problem you're having, that you can put a name on it, that you can then have a plan to try to deal with it or mitigate certain things. But I do wonder if there are just bits of life, if they're just things that people do and they shouldn't do, like being late, for example, being rude, being in a social situation and saying the wrong thing, or not necessarily saying the wrong thing, but being rude to someone in a social situation, making a point that they shouldn't make. I wonder if we excuse a lot of that behaviour, actually. I wonder if we're simply saying, oh, well, that person's on the autistic spectrum, and it kind of excuses it and says, well, that's something that you shouldn't do. ADHD is another thing. I know of someone in a school, a child in a school who is diagnosed with ADHD, who is late all the time, and the school simply says, well, he's got ADHD, can't be a good timekeeper. I mean, is that an excuse?
I think there are some excuses here. I also think I think for some people, this is very genuine, because it really is about them not being able to deal with life as it is. And so therefore, you know, a diagnosis is something they reach for. What we're also seeing as well in education, you know, those of us who work in education, people not having a lot of attention, not being able to read books. I work in a university. 15 years ago, students would read a book back to front, you know, cover to cover. I imagine now there's very few students that goes to universities and actually reads the full book. You know, their attention to detail becomes very difficult as well. We're seeing all of these problems. And I do think that the contemporary world that we live in is lending itself to behaviours and difficulties that perhaps we've not seen before.
I notice it with some people who are a younger generation. I don't want to be, you know, talking about snowflakes or Gen Z or just generally, you know, being ageist essentially, but I do notice in people in my life who can't concentrate or they can't remember things, or they can't just, you know, follow basic instructions, or alternatively, you know, something is sort of straightforward and then 5 minutes later they can't remember. I find that very, very strange, actually, when it comes to that, because I was one of those students 15, 20 years ago that was told, read this book from cover to cover, and I did that. I'm not saying I was a world's best student. In fact, I was a terrible student in many ways, but you knew the work was there to be done and had to be done, and now it seems to be kind of bite size, and any form of reading list, for example, at university, seems to be resisted.
Yeah, and also at A-levels as well, because, you know, one of the things that we notice is when we get students who come from A-levels into the university, I'll be honest, the first year, you're trying to get them to unlearn the things that they've been taught in A-level.
What have they learned that you're getting them to unlearn? This is interesting.
Well, what they learn in A-levels is that there is an answer and they must give the answer.
Yes.
So therefore, what they're doing is they need to know what the answer is. When they come to university, their critical thinking skills and going to the library or trying to do your own research, that's what a university education does. So what you get is students coming into the classroom demanding the answer.
But I think that was that not the case 20 years ago? Because I mean, I am 42, and I remember going to university and having this whole new world of people saying, you know, come up with it yourself. You're not spoon-fed and then you regurgitate, which is a lot of what I did at A-level, and then you're in university and you're thinking, actually, hold on a second, there is no one answer to this.
Yeah, and that's what you do in the first year. You get them to move on from the A-levels where they're spoon-fed and there is an answer that it must be, you know, there's an answer, to getting them to go and do their own research. Obviously now, 20 years ago, your research would have been in the library, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Now, their research can be on their phone.
Or AI, where they're not actually thinking either.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what we've lost in society is these problem-solving skills. And I think that comes straight through all of our education, but also we do live in a very different world now. We do live in a very different society where I would say perhaps the younger generation now are living equally online as they are offline. So therefore, the online, offline, you know, me and you know when we're online, it's a persona, you know, but I think younger people now, because they're online probably half of their lives.
Could the social media ban change that in some way, do you think, or maybe not actually?
No, I don't think it would. I mean, there's gaming, you know, as well as I do, that younger people now, you know, they don't go out and play and they don't meet friends. What they do is they do the gaming. You know, how many people are hearing lots of conversations coming from bedrooms, because that's where young people now meet their friends online. And I think as a society, we've really got to start to think about what is it that's now happening. You know, is it a bad thing, or have we got to change something? But judging everybody as we once did, when technology has moved so fast, and that includes sort of the way learning difficulties and the way they manifest themselves as well. I think this is actually a broader conversation.
Really, really interesting points there, and thank you for them. I just wonder if you, I mean, you may be talking to us from the Sandy Lane Hotel in Barbados. Maybe you're in Marbs, you know, sunning yourself. I don't know if you're on holiday or not, but what do you?
No, I'm in Bestwood Village in Nottinghamshire, in the mining village.
Well, I'm yes, I'm not on holiday either. But Andy Burnham is. I just wonder what the, you know, what the Dr. Lisa McKenzie diagnosis of that is. Should he be on holiday? Should he not?
Oh, I think he should. You know what? Politicians are real people as well. And actually, if he's taking a holiday now, fair enough, because I think in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, you know, things are coming down the line. That's going to be very, very, very serious.
It's all going to get very real.
Yeah, petrol prices are going up, heating is going up, food is going up, prisoners are being let out of prison, the trains aren't working. We need somebody who's going to come on and ready to tackle that. Whether he can do that or not, I don't know. But, you know, that's coming down the line in the next month or so.
Okay. Lisa, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, Dr. Lisa McKenzie there, who's an academic and author. Always good to get her wisdom. Peter's been in touch and says, autism, some people need to understand why some kids claim to be autistic but just have a problem behaving themselves and use autism as the excuse. I think ADHD is part of this as well. I think there are far too many people diagnosed with ADHD who don't have it. Mark said, there's some people who don't believe ADHD is actually a thing. I wonder what you think. 0344 499 1000. Mark says, could you ask your listeners to sign the petition regarding stopping the early release of PC Harper's murders? Thank you. That is Mark in Somerset. Yeah, very happy to do that. I'll have a look at it myself online later as well. Carol says, love the show as always. Thank you, Carol. Personally, I can't stand Burnham, but everyone is entitled to a holiday. But he skipped all the questions from journalists, and I don't think he actually will do what the majority of people want in the UK. I would move abroad tomorrow if I could, but I can't rock up somewhere and expect them to host me. That is Carol from Clacton, at present in Tenerife on holiday. Tenerife, I hope you're having a lovely time, Carol, and you're making a very good choice to listen on a holiday. Hope you're enjoying it. You would be maybe an hour, 2 hours ahead. I hope you're enjoying your evening anyway. Another Peter says, why do MPs think it's okay to take 6 weeks off when we have so many pressing problems in this country? It's ridiculous. They're not off for 6 weeks. Parliament's off. They're not off for all that time. They do other stuff during that time, but it's another matter. Thank you to Ernie. He says, regarding Ireland refusing to use Israeli technology, that should read the Irish government refuses to use Israeli technology. You can't tar all the people of a country with the same brush because their governments act in a certain way, including Israeli people. Ernie, that is a very good point, well made, and thank you for it. Dee in Chesterfield says, I have an ancient laptop and the vision often freezes while the audio carries on. Just now I had a frozen pic of you and Jonathan, two of my favourite people. I may keep it as a screensaver, says Dee in Chesterfield. Dee, you're clearly a woman of very good taste. Stay with us here on Talk and get your call in. We'll go to the phones in a second. 0344 499 1000.
I think what he suspects is that the leadership of Reform is in trouble with all these scandals, apparent scandals over donations. Reform, nevertheless, is well known across the country. Reform as a vehicle is capable, if it has the right leadership, of actually forming a government. And that with the weakened leadership of Reform, there's a risk that Reform itself will be lost. And he doesn't want to lose the potential of a vehicle that could provide the kind of government that he and I and others wish this country to have.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Gary says enough is enough. Let's get some patriotic millionaires to buy support boats and powerful jet skis and safety equipment and organise our own people's border force. There are tens of thousands of ex-military who would give up their time to patrol the waters to stop this invasion from leaving French waters. If this invasion was to see a wall of Union Jacks, if this invasion was to see a wall of Union Jacks as they left the beaches, they would stop trying to cross. Do a quick poll on your show to see how many people with the skills to join the PBF would volunteer, says Gary. Another person says, it seems we're looking at this problem incorrectly. There is a world beyond England, and are there really no places abroad while more prison places are built in England? I'm sure there are countries that will provide places. Rich says we bring in criminals in dinghies, yet we let our criminals out of prisons early. Things are getting bad, very bad. Ange says I cannot listen to this. We have a massive increase in the population and no increase in provision. It is rocket science, talking about something earlier on in the programme. Kirsty in West Yorkshire says on the prisons carnage, some of the women's prisons could be used as, I think, but maybe wrong. They're less violent prisoners typically. Could they be released and then empty one of them for men? Are there any others locked up for tweets by that traitor Starmer that could come out? Labour found prison places then. Sarah in Weymouth says, great show, please could you encourage everyone to sign the petition to retain PC Harper's killers in prison on change.org. It has currently reached 70,000 in one day. Aileen O'Connor from the Thames Valley Police Federation has raised this on your show earlier, and we must show our support to PC Harper's family and our police force. Thank you. Sarah, thank you for that. I haven't actually signed it yet because I've been working on the show, but what I have done is that one of our regular contributors, Elle, has tweeted it, and I've retweeted her. So if you go to @PeterCardwell on Twitter right now, you will see as the second tweet down that I have retweeted what Elle has put in there. So that is about PC Harper's family. I'll just double check this is done. And has retweeted, so I'm not giving you a bumps here. Yes, it is petition to stop the early release from jail of PC Harper's killers. 72,976 signatories. I've retweeted that, so if you look at my retweets, it's there. I haven't had time so far, but after the programme, after 10 o'clock, I will sign it, I promise. Right then, let's go to the phones. Ben is in London and has some thoughts. You're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say, Ben?
Hi, Ben. Thank you, Peter, for letting me call again. Saudi, okay. I worked in Saudi for 2 years as an English teacher. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been completely immersed into the Muslim world. Okay.
Sure.
And when you go to a supermarket, it's like penguins. You got black and white. You got the black of the women and the white of the man. They're walking around the whole supermarket, you know. So I've been immersed of the whole culture. Okay. I've learned a lot about Islam during those 2 year period. Okay. So I'm quite open to a lot of things that are happening in this world today. However, I do think that Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Iran and Syria are causing the problems, because if you look at the Muslim world, you look at Saudi, you look at Bahrain, you look at UAE, Kuwait, they're all peaceful people. I've worked there. I know, I've seen it myself. And I'm so angry that we have people that are trying to cause issues in our country.
I know what you're trying to say. I mean, you can't sort of have a broad brush and say every single person in Bangladesh or Pakistan or whatever.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in the Middle East. It doesn't happen. If you go west of that line in the Red Sea. The Gulf. The Gulf. It's nothing. It's all peaceful. You go to the east. It's all chaos.
So which line? Which line are you talking about?
We're talking about the Gulf of the Middle East. Okay.
Okay.
If you go west, okay, and you look at Kuwait, you look at Saudi.
I'm gonna get the geography wrong. Hold on a second.
Look at Oman.
Okay, I'm gonna get the geography wrong here, but what about Gaza? I mean, Gaza.
Peter, they're all conservative Muslims, and they never ever cause any issues. I've worked in Saudi for 2 years. I know for a fact. I've been for dinner in their homes. I've been invited to restaurants by these people. Okay.
I mean, I'm still not sure. I'm still okay. Hold on a second.
People.
Ben, you need to let me speak. I'm not so sure that they're. I mean, look, they may well be peaceful when it comes to our country. I know we do a lot of business with Saudi Arabia, for example. There are many aspects of Saudi culture that I am not happy with. They behead a lot of people. They don't like gay people. Women are oppressed. There's a lot not to recommend. I understand that.
I understand about okay. So if you go into that point of view, I understand that when I was working there, it was a business visa, so I could actually leave any time I could. If you have Ikama, for example, which is a business visa from a company, for example, if the company said you cannot leave, you cannot leave. So that's basically indentured.
And that to be honest, Ben,
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that the country is trying. I will reiterate that they are trying to become a better Muslim country.
Well, they could start by not throwing gay people off buildings, Ben, and beheading people. That would be a really good start. Ben, thanks for your call. I think we probably disagree on that one, but nonetheless, appreciate you giving us a ring. We'll talk in just a second about something totally different, a dedicated dog bus service. You know I love animal stories, and we'll go to the phones too. So if you want to get your voice on the air, 0344 499 1000, stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Elisa in Chelmsford, who has messaged me to say Ben is referring to the Gulf states where they don't have the Muslim Brotherhood. Thank you to Nat as well, who's been in touch. He says, have you sent a personal video message to Meghan Markle today? No, I haven't. I mean, she's 45 and, you know, being married to Prince Harry, I mean, she's suffered enough. Right then, I want to talk about a story that I spotted today, and I love it. This is a dedicated dog bus service planning a nationwide expansion. Dogs should have buses, I think. Drawing to a halt by a row of wagging tails, the Telegraph reports, the doors to the school bus open to accept the latest batch of four-legged passengers. For 10 months, Billy's bus has been picking up 15 dogs at a time from villages around West Yorkshire, ferrying them to a private park for outdoor activities. Laura Mohan, who is the company's founder, said she had come across the idea by chance and now believes every neighbourhood needs a pet daycare bus. We're going to talk to her now. Laura, it's great to have you in the programme. I understand Billy the Cavapoo is with you as well. There he is. There's the lad himself. Oh, he's waving. Hello, Billy. How are you? That's lovely. Tell us about Billy's bus and how it all came about.
So I took inspiration from a lady called Hope Melberg. She's got Canine Convoy, which is in the USA.
Love it.
For a year, I was watching her TikToks and I just thought, what joy, you know, she's transporting dogs around on an old American schoolie bus and all the dogs got on really well together. And I just thought, what a great idea that is. Started researching it to see if there was anything similar in the UK. I found that there was nothing similar, so decided to give it a go myself.
So what happens? So just talk me through. The bus goes round, picks up the dogs. Is this, can you pay for this presumably, and then is sort of doggy daycare? Just talk me through it.
That's right, yeah. So our bus is just a transportation to get the dogs to our bark park, which is up on Cow and Calf in Oakley Moors.
Bark. I love it. I mean, you're really good at this. The bark park. Brilliant.
I've got loads of them. Everything's pawsome. You know, they're not customers, the parents. Oh, yeah, we
Superb.
go to town with them. So we pick all our dogs up from group pickups, which works really well. Like on a Friday, we'll pick 10 dogs up from Morrison's. We have 10 parents and dogs all lined up, waiting for us to collect the dogs outside the cafe at Morrison's in Guiseley. So we've created real communities in every town which we pick up from, which has been brilliant. So we pick all our pups up and they're all safely secure on board. We listen to some classic FM, we have a cappuccino, we have a little sing-song, we have at least 3 staff on each bus, and then we take them up to our backpack where we have trampolines, agility equipment, sniff trails, lots of ball chasing. We have a regular dog trainer come up just to deal with the little nuances you get, you know, just little off-lead stuff.
Well, I want to ask you about this actually, because obviously dogs in general tend to get on, but on the bus, have there been any fights with dogs not getting on? And alternatively, and I'm aware it's 20 to 10 in the evening, are there any dogs that get on too well?
Yeah. Yeah, so first of all, no, we've not had any fights, and it's a question that I get all the time, and all I can put it down to is our dedication and our tasters. So with our taster sessions, it's 3 hours of gauging the style of play, the behaviour, likes, dislikes, to see if they're going to be suitable to be on the bus for one, because a lot of dogs don't like to travel, and it's extremely stimulating what we do. And then we get them up to the park, and then before anyone's allowed in the main field, we do lots of different little things with them to make sure that they're suitable. So we repack it all the time. We're tasting them, testing them, to make sure that everyone's really happy. And no, we've not had one fight. We're super diligent. You know, there's a lot of us. There's like literally 1 to every 4 dogs. So second question, yeah. Sometimes they get on too well, and it can be boy and boy, and it doesn't really matter. They just we have the odd little dog or two that gets very friendly with the other dogs.
That is something dogs. So you mentioned Ilkley Moor, famous as a filming location for Calendar Girls, of course. Other famous films as well. So what are the biggest challenges you face in all of this? Because you're talking about expansion here. This is a big thing. You're talking about nationwide. You're going from one presumably pretty successful business. It sounds great, by the way, to going nationwide. Is that not going to be massive, scaling it all up, big challenges?
Well, there's a couple of different routes that I'm going down. The franchise is one route that we're looking at doing, but the vetting for these franchisees is absolutely huge, because you have to be like me and my team. But what I'm trying to do is, the other side of this business is the volunteering side. So we have a number of volunteers that have come through. Some of them have been young adults with learning difficulties, with autism and ADHD, which you've just been speaking about tonight. That's my background. I've done 12 years of volunteering with adults with learning difficulties, homelessness, addiction, financial issues. And what we've seen on the bus is that in a very short space of time, these volunteers are coming on board and it's changing their lives. I mean, it's just magical what's happening. So we've launched off our second bus in Durham 2 weeks ago, and that bus is purely for adults with learning difficulties, to train them, to give them employment, paid employment, a meaningful life, socialise, confidence, everything. It's working. So the community buses like the one in Durham is not for profit. And I'm trying to get one of these buses in every single council in the whole of the UK, which is a not-for-profit, for adults with learning difficulties. And this has come about through a guy called Ben Tinkler, who has got a company called Bridge Creative. And he recognised years ago that the national average for adults with learning difficulties to get into employment was 4.86%. In Durham, it's 0.05%. So he started this enterprise which creates working opportunities, employment and training for adults with learning difficulties, neurodiversity, autism. My bus in Ilkley, we're already doing that. We're proving that this can really make a difference in young adults' lives. So I'd like to roll that out all across the country, and that's our social mission.
Laura, you just sound lovely. You just sound really nice. You sound like a really good person, and I really like what you're doing. How can other people look into getting involved as volunteers, or maybe putting forward family members with learning difficulties, or someone who might benefit from getting involved with your buses?
Well, we've got over 2,000 dogs have enrolled now, and we've only got 2 buses, so it's really important to get more buses out there. We've got over 100 people on a list to volunteer just for my one bus in Ilkley, so we've only got 3 human seats on the bus, so there's only too many people.
No room for them.
Yeah, we could have on board. But hopefully, if we can get one of these in every council across the UK, then there's going to be loads of volunteering opportunities for people. You know, there's a whole workforce out there that's overlooked and underestimated, and everybody should have the ability to find a job and a role and give them a meaningful life. And you know what? Dogs don't judge, do they? You know, so I think this is why this magic is become so profound, because we have young adults coming on board. They're in a safe setting, surrounded by loving dogs that just want a treat and want to lick your face, and like I say, they don't judge. So we're hoping to roll these out across the UK so that we can have more volunteers come on board and have the training that we're giving them and experience just a life that's really quite simple and it's uncomplicated, but you get so much love.
You get so much out of it as well. And there's so many people as well who have dogs who, rather than the dog, you know, being tied up in the back garden or in the house or whatever during the day, get the dog out there and get it with other dogs and people who really appreciate the time. Do you think you're clearly fulfilling a need here? Is this something you think the government maybe should do, or are you just saying, look, it's here, we'll just get on with it, we'll just do it ourselves?
Oh no, I'm advocating for it and I won't stop. I'm already in touch with a few different councils to see what the appetite is to do this, because it's a lovely little ecosystem. If we can train the volunteers up, get them into paid employment on the bus, then they're coming off the benefit system, they're getting training, and so it's a lovely little circle. It's
brilliant.
It should be. It's going to take a while to do it, but it'll be done.
Well, I wish you every good fortune with it. Please keep in touch, and if we can maybe chat again when things are even bigger. I mean, it's been going for 10 months. So is it you just Google Billy's Bus? You'll find your website. You'll see how you can get involved if you want.
Absolutely, we're all over socials, and our website is www.billysbus.co.uk.
Okay, thank you very much. To be honest, Billy didn't say very much during that interview, but thanks to him as well, and indeed to Laura Mohan and Billy the Cavapoo. What a great thing. This just sounds lovely. It sounds like a really good idea. It's helping dogs, it's helping people with learning difficulties who need to get out of the house and be part of something bigger than themselves. I just think it's a superb idea, and Laura's just got this kind of infectious energy as well. I feel just sort of energised by the interview. That's fantastic. Billy's Bus is what it's called, and there's so much. It's in West Yorkshire at the moment, but it could well be coming to a Bark Park near you. We'll go to the callers in just a second and find out what they think as well, and you too, whatever is on your mind. 0344 499 1000. We'll have a quick chat with Petri Hoskin as well about what's coming up on her programme between 10 and 1. Loads to discuss, and you can give me a ring, of course, 0344 499 1000.
I think what he suspects is that the leadership of Reform is in trouble with all these scandals, apparent scandals over donations. Reform, nevertheless, is well known across the country. Reform as a vehicle is capable, if it has the right leadership, of actually forming a government. And that with the weakened leadership of Reform, there's a risk that Reform itself will be lost. And he doesn't want to lose the potential of a vehicle that could provide the kind of government that he and I and others wish this country to have.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch, including Sean, who says, to be fair, the Israeli jet still has ILS. The Israeli Falcon Eye is brilliant tech. The Irish government are just being pathetic. Don't tell them, but all their smartphones have Israeli tech. Yorkshire Megs says, why didn't you take James Mathewson off the air? He's incompetent, ill-informed and slanderous. That is not debate. Shame on you, Peter Cardwell. You should have shut him down. Well, I have been in touch with George Madgwick, and he says it was a spicy debate, but he was happy to take part in it. So thank you to George for that. Jules says, no Prime Minister, Cabinet Member or MP are their own bosses, Peter. They all work for and are accountable to the British people. They are public servants. Lucia says, absolutely disgusting debate with James Mathewson throwing all sorts of claims about reform and personal attacks on George Madgwick. No wonder the public can't be bothered with politicians' disgusting behaviour. Well, in fairness, James Mathewson isn't a politician. Angela says, why do people come on Talk and divert conversations into insulting Reform UK and Nigel Farage? It's not just the left-leaning commentators, it's Tories like Kevin Hollingrick as well. Don't they realise they're insulting the membership of these parties as well? Hugh says, of course the Prime Minister is entitled to a summer holiday, but the timing here is completely inappropriate. Burnham needed at least a month to bed in. However, I do not think any Prime Minister should take 2 consecutive weeks at holiday at any time. Should be limited to at least 1 month apart. Angela has been back in touch. She said she was 50-50. She said, Peter, you have convinced me that Andy Burnham should be on holiday. So thank you, Angela, for that. Catherine in Cardiff said, can we also have pubs that are dedicated to dogs too, so that the rest of us do not have to put up with them constantly barking and sitting in the owner's laps at the tables and completely fed up with their presence in what were once adult-only spaces. In my neck of the woods, the other evening, all the dogs were inside the pub and the people were out. I'm not anti-animals, just pro-people, said Catherine in Cardiff. Mark says, your last caller was right. Pakistani and Bangladeshi Muslims are waging a soft war in the UK for decades. They are now in every corner of power, including government, where they are deliberately trying to change the UK into a predominantly Muslim state. I just don't think that's the case, Mark, but listen, thank you for that. Alex says, I wonder if the Khashoggi family think that the Saudis are peaceful people. Very good point. Let's remember that journalist who was cut up with a bone saw by the Saudi regime. Ernie says, I think one of your texters' idea was genius. If we haven't got enough prison places left in Britain, let's do a deal with a foreign country to take our criminals. I'd love to see the child grooming and rape gang members being sent to Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi. No one could complain because they're Muslim countries and most of the perpetrators follow that religion and want Sharia law. Ginger Tom says, does it really matter if Burnham has taken a holiday? I think not. Prime Ministers are in name only. It was clear that Cummings and McSweeney were running the country, so clearly Burnham has a puppet master. You and Rod Little are the only people I listen to. Sadly, that just leaves you now. Keep up the good work. I will miss Rod Little on the airwaves, it must be said. Thank you. That's to be discussed in the same breath as Rod Little is a huge compliment, and I really appreciate that. Mo says, release the prisoners, let them live in the same street as the MPs. Sean in Edinburgh says, I am powerless with laughter reading about this clueless Irish government refusing anything with components from Israel. They want to put a show for themselves to say how much they hate Israel and the Jewish faith. As someone who's proud of my Irish heritage, I give 2 fingers to the Irish government for the hatred of the Jewish faith and the claims on so-called genocide, says Sean in Edinburgh. John in Wallington says people are getting frightened by all these undocumented men coming across the channel. It has gone on for far too long. The government has got to make stopping it a priority. And final message before we go to a couple of callers. Gary says, you excused Andy Burnham going on holiday because it's August and you claim that everybody goes away on holiday in August. I didn't say that. I said it's August. It is a popular time to go on holiday. I'm not going on holiday in August, for example, apart from 2 days at the very end, where I'm going to Edinburgh. Because it's August and you claim that everybody goes away on holiday. That's simply not true. Unless you have children or grandchildren in school, and Burnham is neither, then August is actually a very unpopular time to go on holiday because it's very expensive. Holiday resorts tend to be very crowded. Burnham desperately wanted this job, and we are told that he has much better political antennae than Starmer, but on this one he has dropped the ball because it's not a good look to take a holiday only 2 weeks after starting the biggest job in the country. Thank you, Gary. I am going on a cheap holiday or cheaper than usual holiday to Edinburgh, it must be said, because I'm taking the train, which I got for a reasonable rate by booking in advance, and also, accommodation-wise, I'm staying with my friend Sarah. Mark's in Lincolnshire and has some thoughts on Andy Burnham. Mark, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi there, Peter. Yeah, I think he's entitled to his holiday. The way I look at it is, if, you know, one of your listeners that doesn't agree, what about them in their job? If they suddenly book a holiday, kids are all excited, etc., and while you're waiting to do your holiday, a job offer comes up, you take it, and then you've got to go on your holiday. You can't get a refund, so what are you going to do?
He probably booked this before he knew he was going to be Prime Minister.
Yeah, and he was working before he became Prime Minister anyway.
Yes.
So
you think fair enough?
Of course.
Okay.
You know, I've also just sent you a picture, Peter. You've been talking about animals tonight. I found that sand cat, if you remember, a while back. I've now found the world's smallest cat, which is the world's smallest wild cat, which is the rusty spotted cat, which is native in Sri Lanka and Nepal. I'll send you a picture on your X.
Thank you. I will take a look at that, Mark.
But yeah, other than that, I was just going to say it's lovely to see Reform fall into the trap that Resource set for them. Fantastic news.
I was going to ask you about that, actually. I know you're a fan of Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. You think this is a trap? You don't think that it'll actually happen? There won't be a deal?
I think there was some element of a genuine deal there, but I think it was done in such a way with those 5 points, because everybody keeps, why put those red lines in there? Well, those red lines are in there for a specific reason, and that is for the reason I've been seeing online anyway, and, you know, some other reformers that I've spoken to. None of them disagree with any of those red lines, but strangely enough, reform leadership people do, and reform, you know, more significant reform supporters, they do. You know, that's what they've been doing since Sunday, pointing out specific problems with specific of the point, you know, the positions that Rupert outlined. So I think I've come to the conclusion that was probably the main reason for this, was to essentially highlight to reform voters, look, these are our red lines. These are the things we're doing. These are our policies. If you agree with these, then, you know, what's Reform doing? Why have they got a problem not agreeing with this? I mean, you can even go as far as saying Lucy Connolly came out and said she doesn't have a problem with any of those red lines.
Okay. Interesting points. Listen, Mark, thank you. That's Mark in Lincolnshire. Just before we chat to Pedri Hoskin, I want to get in Grace in West London. Has some thoughts on autism. Grace, you've been diagnosed with autism yourself?
Yeah, I was diagnosed just over 20 years ago, and now it feels like everyone's got it. Maybe the criteria weren't quite so broad back then, and I didn't know I was being assessed for it. I was seeing a psychiatrist anyway because my teachers had sent me there when they were deeply concerned about me breaking down in tears at school, and I was then told that I was being assessed for autism and, well, Asperger's specifically.
Did it help you to be assessed for that and to be told here is something that, you know, is part of your character?
Yeah, it helped me to understand some things about myself. In particular, for me, it predisposes to kind of obsessive-compulsive thoughts, feeling very strongly I need to do things in a certain way, and I just can't kind of escape from that. And for me personally, that predisposes me to my eating disorder, and there's a correlation between people with autism and eating disorders. But it also means I'm useless at understanding other people's thoughts and feelings, and I care very much about other people's feelings, but I don't understand them. Okay. And this kind of comes up very often in family discussions. I'm utterly clueless about how other people's minds work.
What about, were you diagnosed with Asperger's? Because that's a word that isn't often used anymore.
Yeah, and there are a couple of reasons for that so far as I understand.
Well, what are the reasons? Do you know them off the top of your head? Because I don't know.
I've not explored it in all that much detail. And some people refer to the autism community as in people with autism, and I think that's such a weird oxymoron. Like, you're not in a community if you've got no social skills.
People love the word community, though. They talk. I mean, I remember someone on the radio in Northern Ireland talking about the dissident Republican community at one point. I just thought everything can be a community.
One of the reasons is that some people feel that there shouldn't be a differentiation from other forms of autism, and I would disagree, because I think that different people have different challenges, and it's important and helpful to realise that. But it's also because Dr. Asperger, after whom Asperger's is named, was contracted by the Nazi Party to differentiate between autistic people as to whom should remain alive and who should not, which is so horrific.
That would certainly explain why we don't talk about Asperger's anymore. That is okay. That makes sense.
Some people would argue that he thus saved the lives of some autistic people who otherwise would not have been allowed to remain alive. But it's obviously just so horrific.
Yes.
That a lot of people don't like the word. At the same time, it's kind of a word that I got used to long before I knew about that history.
Yes, of course. Grace, as always, I've learned a lot from you, and you've been very open, especially talking about your own struggles as well, so I really thank you for that and for your honesty. I've learned a heck of a lot, actually, during this programme, and I love my job, because that's what we do, isn't it, Petri? We learn stuff a lot of the time, every single day.
Yeah, every single day. I love it. I love the phone-ins. That's my
I learned from your
thing.
show, too. What's coming up on it?
What's coming up on it? We're going to be talking about the Migration EU meeting and what that means. I've got a professor of European law who's going to be talking about what the EU can do, what it can't do, and all of those things. We're going to be looking at that. Also, we're going to be looking at the puberty blockers trial that is cleared to go ahead to recruit 226 children between the ages of 11 and 16.
It was in the High Court the other day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on the 1st of August that they were cleared to start recruiting these young kids. And that's going to be the midnight as well. That's going to be talked back. Is this morally wrong?